Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the MHA What If with another fanfiction. This is the move of What If Deku discovered Kaminari's secret? All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Denki Kaminari had a typical life in any possible way a young hero in training could have. He went to a high school, had amazing friends, and got terrible grades so relatable, he could say. Denki acknowledged that if he were a character in a TV show or a book, he wouldn't be the protagonist. Because in this world filled with quirks, he was completely normal. But 3 things in his life could be considered abnormal. They were just 3 little separate things that he didn't even think about much at all. The first one was his memories of early childhood. Because, well, there were none. He, for the life of him, could not remember anything from his early years of life. Denki didn't think this was that weird because really, who remembered anything from being a little child? But a couple of times in middle school, he heard his classmates say things like, "Remember when we were 5 and our parents decided to take us?" No way. When I was like 3, my sister always used to. When hearing people talk about their memories from a young age, Denki wondered how they could remember things like that. Apparently, people had some memories of early childhood. The lack of memories was not a big thing for him. He probably just had an awful memory. Sure, it would be nice to remember who he used to be friends with when he was little, but it is what it is. The second, abnormalish thing in his life was his parents. In public and at home, they always were loving and happy parents. Denki loved both of his parents equally and was lucky to have them. But sometimes, when they thought he wasn't looking, they'd give him weird looks. He swore that sometimes they even looked scared. Scared of what? Ridiculous. They were an ordinary family with a normal son, after all. The third thing was the medicine he took every day. Denki didn't think taking this medicine was abnormal at all before much later. He knew why he had to take it. It was for his own good. This medicine is for your quirk. See, as an electric type, your quirk could hurt your developing body. Electricity is dangerous for the regular human body. Almost all people with element-based quirks have to take some medicine like this. Fire, as well as ice, is destructive to cells. Earth instead blah blah blah. Had a doctor explained when Denki's mother had taken him to see one. Soon Kaminari would understand that those 3 little abnormal things were a part of something much bigger. The atmosphere was intense. 2 cars, one yellow and one orange, were competing on a winding road. The road was one of the hardest there was. Suddenly, the orange car slammed itself into the yellow one. A laugh, cruel and demonic, could be heard next to a golden-eyed boy. But the boy was not scared at all. He had predicted this very move from his competitive opponent. He quickly got back on the track, and with a smirk on his face, he threw a banana peel in front of the orange car. The orange vehicle went spinning as the yellow one passed it. With the lead that the yellow car had gained, it drove over the finish line. "Hiya! I won!" The boy cheered and stuck his tongue out childishly to the blonde boy next to him. Kirishima and Siro gave him manly applause. Ifanji demand a rematch. Sorry Kaken. I'd love to, but I promised Tokoyami that I would practice the guitar again with him before it gets too late. Oh, I wanted to play Mario Kart with you too, Kaminari. I already practiced dancing today with the others on the dance team. Now you're abandoning me. Don't be a drama queen, Mina. Kaminari Denki teased as he got up from the couch that the self-proclaimed Baku squad had invaded almost an hour ago. They had been spending time playing video games. Once Kaminari was a safe distance away from Bakugo, he yelled, "Don't be a sore loser, Kaken." Kaminari ran for his life as explosions echoed from the common room. No, not the gaming controller, Bakugo. Kaminari heard Siro whine as he safely made his escape. He giggled happily for a while as he fetched his guitar from his room and made his way to Tokoyami's. Kaminari and Tokoyami practiced playing their guitars for the rest of the evening. They had been diligently practicing for the school festival. Kaminari was sitting on his assigned seat, in between Mina and Jairu as usual, when Aizawa-sensei rolled in with his yellow sleeping bag. He looked as depressed and tired as yesterday, and the day before that, when he gathered the mental strength to tell instructions for the problem class. Today, we'll be working in pairs, Aizawa started saying and immediately got interrupted with several rising hands. He gave a suffering sigh. No, you cannot choose your partner. I've already decided on them. All the hands went down. In those pairs, you will have a reflective discussion about your quirks. I will give each pair a paper slip with questions to help get started with the conversations. The idea of this exercise is to help you get a different perspective for your quirk training, Aizawa explained with an even tone, and in the end, he added, any questions? Because all the students were rehearsing for the festival, teachers had made their hero training lighter. Instead of physical activities, there were more theoretical ones. Kaminari could tell this was the case now too. Since there weren't any questions, Aizawa-sensei started to assign the pairs. Hagakure and Tokoyami. Ashido and Uraraka. Yayorozu and Sato. Bakugo and Oyama. Tsuro and Shoji. Ida and Jair. Kaminari and Midoriya. Mineta and Ojiro. Todoroki and Tsuyu. Kirishima and Koda. Wow, these pairs were utterly random, Kaminari thought. He got Midoriya as his partner. Lucky him, Midoriya was basically a talking information bank and a quirk analyzer. He would have good suggestions, or at least a lot of rambling to present, the blonde thought fondly as he went to sit next to his partner. The classroom was full of the sound of chairs being moved and talking as everybody got settled. Nice to work with you, Midoriya. Kaminari vocalized and smiled brightly. Nice to work with you too, Kaminari. Midoriya replied politely and gave a small smile of his own. Aizawa started giving the paper slips, and soon every pair had one. Kaminari quickly read through the paper. Work with a partner and answer the following questions. You don't need to write the answers down. What is your quirk? Give a detailed explanation. What are the drawbacks/limits of your quirk? How could your partner improve their quirk? Give ideas or training methods. After finishing your discussion, work separately and write a summary of new ideas to develop your quirk. Hand it back to the teacher. Do you want to start by explaining your quirk and its drawbacks? Kaminari asked Midoriya. The green-haired boy was almost vibrating with excitement in his seat. He had pulled out his notebook. Kaminari was used to seeing Midoriya writing into that notebook while muttering by himself. He must be enthusiastic about this assignment, Kaminari concluded and couldn't help but smile by himself. This could turn out to be fun with such an intelligent partner. Sure, I can start. My quirk is officially designated as superpower. It gives me the ability to access the stockpiled energy, momentarily increasing my strength and speed to superhuman levels. This results in increasing levels of strength, speed, agility, and durability. My quirk requires me to have strong muscles because otherwise, my body couldn't handle it. I can focus the stockpiled power into a single body part or spread it across my entire body evenly, though focusing the power on a single part puts more strain on that part of my body. I used to get hurt every time in the past when I used it, but that is no longer a problem, rambled Midoriya. Kaminari blinked. Yeah, Midoriya was smart, alright. He shook his head, amused, as he started talking. Thank you for the explanation. My quirk, as you probably know, is called electrification. It allows me to generate electricity and cover my body in it. I can also emit this energy over a distance, but I have little control over it. Exceeding my wattage limit causes my brain to short-circuit, leaving me in a dumb state for 1 hour. Oh, and I can also absorb and neutralize electricity and other lightning-based quirks. My limit is 1.3 million volts, but I can also do 2 million. 2 million causes me to short-circuit faster, though. Midoriya nodded his head in thought. Kaminari was quite sure that the green-haired boy already knew all about his quirk. They sat there, both boys in deep thought for a moment until Midoriya asked, So, have you always had the limit of 1.3 million volts, or has it been different in the past? I think I have always had the same limit. I've never short-circuited over anything less than 1.3 million volts. In elementary school, I never knew about my limit because I never tested higher volts. In middle school, I discovered my limit, And it has always been the same, Kaminari answered. Midoriya nodded again. I had a thought. Would it ever be possible to make your limit higher? And if it was possible, how could it be achieved? Should you train your body or brain to handle electricity better? What if the support department made you a device that could stop the electricity from going into your brain? Would that make your limit disappear completely? I've exceeded my limit many times, and I've never been able to make it higher. Those are excellent questions to consider, but as far as I know, it's impossible to stop electricity from going into my brain. The brain and nervous system work through electrical impulses. Stopping electricity from entering into my brain would mean that I'd become paralyzed. My body couldn't make any movement without the natural electric impulses traveling in the nerves between my body and brain. Midoriya slapped his hand to his face and said, I didn't think about that. It would be hard to make a device that can distinguish the difference between natural electricity and your quirk. Kaminari nodded in confirmation and stated, that would be a difficult thing to make. I don't even know if it's possible. Midoriya and Kaminari discussed the blonde's quirk for a couple of minutes but didn't have any earth-shaking ideas. In the end, Kaminari wrote down a couple of exercises that could help to train the control of his quirk. Then the pair started to talk about Midoriya's quirk and made up different methods of training. Some of Kaminari's ideas were bizarre, and he even made Midoriya laugh once to one of his suggestions. That suggestion had been a joke, of course. Nobody would ever train their quirk with a microwave. You know, now that I think about it, your quirk is similar to All Might's, Kaminari announced. Midoriya's face did a weird expression to that remark. Denki didn't know the emotion behind it. Oh wow? Never thought about it like that, Midoriya said slowly, his face blank. Was he nervous? Denki smirked and teased, Is All Might secretly your dad, Midoriya? Little did the golden-eyed boy know that someone had asked the same kind of question from the green-eyed one before. Midoriya still had the weird expression as he stammered, as if. Denki gave a 1,000-watt smile at that pun intended. I know, just teasing, he laughed. At the same time, the school's bell ringed as the sign of the end of lessons. Kaminari was just about to join his other friends when Midoriya stated, You know, Kaminari, you are much smarter than many think. I rarely have this great of a conversation about quirks. That made Kaminari stop in his track. Wait, what? He rarely, if ever, heard his name and the word smart in the same sentence. And coming from one of the cleverest persons in Class 1, Denki was touched. Dude. Thanks. But you are like super smart. I appreciate the compliment, though, Kaminari responded as he wiped a non-existent tear from the corner of his eye. Midoriya just smiled at him, and they separated in good spirits. It was the morning of the UA school festival. Students were boiling with adrenaline and excitement as everyone waited to see the performances of other classes. Kaminari pulled an orange t-shirt over Bakugo's head when he least expected it. Proud of this achievement, he turned towards Jairu and Yaoyorozu and flashed a smile. He could tell Bakugo was annoyed by this surprise attack, but the red-eyed blonde didn't remove the shirt, so it was all okay. Everyone was worried about Midoriya and wondering why he was so late. This extra worry didn't help Kaminari to ease his nervousness at all. This feeling had been with him since last evening. Performances in front of a big crowd were scary. The band stood on the big stage, blue curtains in front of them. Kaminari slowly inhaled and exhaled. Get yourself together, man. The blue curtains started to open, and his mind planked. It was now or never. He heard the crowd roar. There it is. First years, do your best. Show us what you've got, first years. Yaoyorozu, 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 Yaoyorozu. The overwhelming voice of the crowd slowly went quieter, and then Bakugo let out a yell in his usual aggressive style, Let's go, him in it. Kaminari heard Kirishima yell from the sidelines, Let's make the opening showy. All of you, We'll kill him with our sound. Typical Kaken, Kaminari though. And then something, preferably Bakugo, exploded, and the band started to play. It was one of the most intense experiences of Kaminari's life. It felt amazing, playing together, seeing his other classmates give it all to the dance, and hearing the music. The sound waves were flowing and spinning through his veins and reaching for his lungs. He and Jairu shared a smile. He knew this moment meant a lot for Gyre because she loved music with all of her heart. Kaminari was happy to share this moment with her and everybody else too. And sooner he had hoped, it was over. All the hard work, hours of practice, and planning went to this 4-minute performance. No one had regrets. Adrenaline and contentment were present with Kaminari for the rest of the festival. Everyone went to see the awaited beauty pageant, and after that, Kaminari cheered for Bakugo and Kirishima as the two raced on the obstacle course. He, Ishido and Mineta even visited Class 1C's haunted house. They didn't talk about it, but they all may have screamed a little. Before the evening ended, the Baku squad decided to get crepes. Kaminari happily bounced towards the crepe stall with the others. Before the group of problem children could reach the destination, Kaminari felt something weird in his throat. Was he going to throw up? Oh, it didn't seem right. Denki hadn't even once felt nausea today. If it wasn't that, then what? The feeling intensified. It felt like there were liquid in his throat. Kaminari gagged without his will, but nothing came out. The others hadn't noticed his new struggle, so he decided to head for the bathrooms as fast as possible. He ran past other people, basically throwing himself into the bathroom and locking the door. The feeling did not ease. Denki thought for a moment. If he wasn't feeling sick, then what was the liquidy feeling in his throat? Suddenly, a scary thought struck him. Could it be blood? He did not get a chance to mull in this thought because he gagged again. This time something came out, but it wasn't blood as he had feared. No, it was something weirder, more worrying. The toilet, where he had thrown up, was splattered with a golden liquid. It looked like melted gold. Kaminari stared at the thing that had just come out of his body. What the hell? That wasn't normal, right? Right? His internal panicking was interrupted by his phone buzzing in his pocket. Kaminari quickly read the text message he had just gotten. Ishido Mina, hey, where did you disappear to? We are kinda worried over here. Kaminari Denki, sorry. I went to the bathrooms. I'm coming back now. Ishido Mina, next time tell us before you decide to disappear like that. Kaminari sighed and flushed the toilet. He made his way back to his friends. The rest of the day went smoothly, and he even got the crepe he had been craving. Denki didn't mention the weird liquid to anyone. He didn't want to make his friends worry over stupid details. 2 days later, Kaminari had already forgotten the whole incident. Kaminari brushed through his hair one last time and then threw the hairbrush aside. He viewed his reflection critically from the mirror. He was wearing his favorite old black jeans and a yellow hoodie. Since he saw nothing out of place, he gave himself a little satisfied nod. He pulled out some money from one of his drawers and put it in his pocket for later use. Then he hurried to the common room, where the rest of his friends were waiting. The Baku squad minus Bakugo had whined permission to leave the safe area of UA from Aizawa-sensei. First, the man had been skeptical, but later on relented. Kaminari knew the only reason he did so was to get the annoying children out of his butt. Now the group of intellects were on their way to a restaurant. Bakugo hadn't been so keen on the idea. You extras aren't my FING friends. But the promise of good food could change anybody's mind. The whole way to the eatery, the teens just planned what they were going to order. It didn't take long for them to reach their destination. The group placed their orders and took seats at a corner table. It's a miracle that Aizawa-sensei let us go here, on a weekday no less. Shiro admitted. It was indeed Wednesday, so they all would have an ordinary school day tomorrow. Pretty rude that it's not Friday, but okay, Kaminari answered. Mina let out a little laugh, and soon bad jokes filled their table. Bakugo was suffering from the general lack of IQ level, so Kaminari decided to throw gasoline to the fire by asking, "Wanna hear a joke, Kakin?" Based on his expression, Bakugo obviously didn't, but Denki still continued. The Lord said unto John, "Come forth, and you will receive eternal life." But John came fifth and won a toaster. 3 seconds later, Mina, Shiro, and Kirishima were howling because of Kaminari's bad joke, and Bakugo looked unimpressed. Soon there was nothing else than bad jokes. I threw a boomerang a few years ago. I now live in constant fear. My grandfather has the heart of a lion and a lifetime ban at the zoo. It was awful, but with friends, even the stupidest things were funny. Among the giggling and choking, Kaminari noticed some paper crowns lying on an adjacent table. Those were definitely meant for children customers. And then, out of nowhere, he got the idea to wear those. Proud of his finding, the blonde went and took some paper crowns. The others looked at him in confusion, but when he handed 1 crown for each one of them, their faces brightened. "I'm not going to wear a FING paper crown," dunce face. 5 minutes later, all of them, including Bakugo, were wearing the crowns. To outsiders' eyes, they except Bakugo looked totally stupid wearing those and sitting with goofy smiles on their faces. If they didn't get weird looks before, they sure did now. People on other tables kept stealing glances at them, but they were too busy in their bad jokes to notice any of that. Their fun was interrupted by a waiter, who brought their orders with him. The waiter looked amused and quickly made his escape from the chaos, also known as the Baku Squad. When they had all eaten, they checked out the bill. It was 7,200 yen, $70. That was when everything changed. Kaminari guessed their fate was not with them that day. Kirishima, who claimed that he had 8,000 yens in his purse, found it missing later. He told Kaminari that that was his purse's status 2 weeks ago. Kaminari remembered the money he had taken with him and thought it was his time to shine, so he said, "Don't worry guys, I got it." While he deserved thankful smiles and Bakugo's expression, whatever it was, he reached into his pocket to find that the money was missing. The fate had again turned its back towards Denki. Instead of money, he discovered a nice hole in his pocket. He had been careless since he had forgotten that these old jeans of his had a torn pocket. The money was long gone. When he told his friends about that, they gave him sharp looks, and Bakugo was trying to kill him through his red eyes. Shiro had only brought 3,000 yens with him, and Mina had forgotten her money back at the dorms. When they asked Bakugo, he promptly told the others that since he didn't want to come in the first place, he didn't bring any money. Apparently, they should have treated him the a-hole. In the end, he added, "If I had known you all would be so useless, I would have brought some." The group started a treasure hunt. They were searching each other's pockets, bags and purses. They were only able to collect 4,500 yens. Then the teens launched a full-force search operation at the restaurant. Bravo! They finally managed to find out the money that had slipped through Kaminari's pockets. It was under the table where they had been eating. Thank God they managed to pay the bill. While the Baku Squad had been doing those creepy things at the restaurant, the owner had been staring them as if he was going to call the police the very next moment. After doing all this idiotic stuff, and when the group was paying the bill, the owner said, "Kids, you could have told me that you didn't have the money. I would have charged it next time. After all, I do have good connections with some of your teachers." They found out that the restaurant owner had recognized them as UA students. The owner mentioned that the teachers of UA would sometimes come to his restaurant for a meal. After saying their goodbyes, they left the restaurant. Bakugo was walking in front of Kaminari. From behind, Kaminari noticed that Bakugo's shoulders were shaking. Was he angry? Denki was proved wrong as Bakugo burst into full-on laughter. The others were surprised and a little scared. "You are the biggest idiots I have ever met in my life. And that's really saying something," Bakugo told them through his laughter. After a moment of confusion, Denki couldn't help but start laughing too. Soon all of them were laughing uncontrollably. Kaminari had never seen Bakugo laugh like this. Usually, his laugh was mocking or scary sounding. That day Kaminari fulfilled one of his goals. For a long time, the goal had been to make Bakugo Katsuki laugh. Classes started with a homeroom on Thursday morning. Aizawa-sensei made himself known by opening his sleeping bag and standing up. He had been lying on the floor. Kaminari wondered if he slept the nights in this classroom too. He wouldn't be surprised at all. "Today, I have an announcement to make." The chatter immediately faded away. No one dared to speak on top of Aizawa-sensei. Every year, before Christmas, all of the first years go on a trip. When I say all of the first years, I mean it. Aizawa's words created whispers among the students. All the first years from all the departments? This trip was going to be interesting, Kaminari mused. "Yes, Ida?" Aizawa asked. Ida had raised his hand to ask a question. "What is the purpose of this trip? Will there be training involved?" Aizawa answered in a bored tone. "Good question. No, there will not be any training. This trip is meant solely for relaxing and some other activities. It is also a good opportunity to improve unity between the departments. Class 1A wore shocked expressions. UA organizing typical school events felt weird. After overcoming this surprise, the excitement started to rise among them. We will be going to Hokkaido. The island is cold in December, but you can enjoy a white Christmas and even go skiing at the many resorts found in the mountains. Hokkaido is said to be a real winter wonderland, and everyone in Japan knew this. Kaminari could almost feel his eyes sparkling with exhilaration. We are going to stay at the Windsor Hotel Toya. That place provides feeds such as skiing, sledding, and snowmobiles. So this was the power of the rich UA high school. The hero school renting rooms for many students from an expensive hotel. Denki felt like crying. Before you go crazy, I have to say that you all have to get permission to go on this trip. Many parents may not be willing to let you go, considering the circumstances. This remark referred to all the misfortunes that Class 1A had gone through: kidnapping, attacks, etc. I'll give you a permission form for you and for your guardian to fill out. It also covers things like possible allergies and other health conditions. You must have returned the forms by Friday next week. The trip will happen a week after that. Further information will be sent to you and your family via mail. After sharing the forms, Aizawa-sensei rolled back into his sleeping bag, tired from the mental strain of talking. Chaos erupted in the classroom as everyone started talking with each other, the members of the Baku squad speaking with the loudest voices. The rest of Thursday's lessons went in a flash. Everyone, even from other classes, kept talking about the upcoming trip. Some people were worried that their parents wouldn't let them go on this trip. The very last lesson was hero training with Aizawa-sensei. The students did individual Quirk training. Kaminari felt sweat trickle from his forehead, so he wiped it away with the back of his hand. He had used a quite amount of electricity today, but not to the point of short-circuiting. Still, he felt funny. His legs were trembling slightly, and doing basic movements seemed to use more energy than necessary. Why was he like this? Denki ignored the feeling of weakness in his body. The training came to an end, and he could exhale in relief. The relief didn't last long as he lost control of his own body. He was walking beside Kirishima to the locker rooms, and before he even knew what happened, the blonde's other leg decided to stop working, and he fell on top of Todoroki, who had been walking in front of him. Denki blinked and realized what happened, and quickly forced himself to get up. Oh no! I'm so sorry, Todoroki. My clumsiness just decided to appear from thin air and make me trip on you. Are you okay? Kaminari asked and laughed a little to show his embarrassment. I'm okay. Don't worry about it, Todoroki said bluntly and continued as if nothing had happened. Kaminari was grateful for that. How did you even trip, Sparky? Came a question behind him. Ah, dear Kaken had witnessed his fall from grace. I tripped on nothing, Kaminari admitted solemnly. Idiot. On Friday morning, Kaminari woke up from a particularly delightful dream. Intending to rise up from bed, he started to turn around, but then his cheek touched something wet. He brought a finger to his cheek and wiped away the wet substance. His finger was covered with the golden liquid. Kaminari Denki, I had so weird dream last night. For some reason, you sneaked behind me, and I was so surprised that my breaths flew off in the dream, Then I noticed I was wearing women's underpants? You were wearing them too. This dream is haunting me now. Bakugo Katsuki, what the actual F-? Bakugo Katsuki, this is the third FING time this week you have sent me sheet like this. Bakugo Katsuki, I'll block you. Kaminari Denki, I will text you 54 times in a row and feel no shame. You're my friend, you literally signed up for this, /__/. Bakugo Katsuki is typing. Denki's important texting was interrupted by Shiro. Why do you have this much school stuff anyway? Your drawers are filled with highlighters and to-do lists. Kaminari, Shiro, and Kirishima were sitting around Kaminari's dorm room. For the last hour, they had been studying for present mix upcoming English test. Mina was doing something with the other girls, and Bakugo wanted, in his words, not to destroy his brain around idiots before the test. This was the reason Kaminari was texting him now. Shiro, the good friend he was, had been digging around Kaminari's drawers for his own amusement. So far, he had found fidgets, books, and a lot of random stuff. I love planners, highlighters, fancy pens and to-do lists, and anything else that gives me the illusion that I'm being productive, Kaminari answered, smirking. Kirishima snorted. Maybe I should try to do that too. Could motivate me to study. Bro, Kaminari started saying and put his hand on Kirishima's shoulder. No power in this world can motivate you to study. He finished his sentence with a solemn expression. Shiro cracked up in the background. Kaminari's phone buzzed. Bakugo Katsuki, go and die in a ditch. The smell was as heavenly as always. Kaminari's mom had once again gone overboard with all of the cooking. Denki had said that he would only come to visit for a few hours, but his mom had still made a lot of food. The blonde-haired boy's mom loved cooking. She would almost every week test out new recipes. Denki was so lucky to have such a wonderful mother like her. Kaminari resembled his mother more than his father. He had inherited the blonde hair and golden eyes from her, and they both were social butterflies. Kaminari was struggling to find the right words for what he was going to say. The boy could no longer pretend there wasn't anything wrong with him. He had been feeling physical weakness every day since the training, and he experienced some other things too. It was hard to focus while in class because his attention kept slipping. He found himself zoning out more often than ever. He would stumble and trip more often too, and his hands started trembling when he tried to write. The golden liquid became a familiar sight. He would wake up in the mornings to find his sheets covered in it. One time, when he thought he got a nosebleed, instead of blood, the fricking liquid had started to drip from his nose. Denki didn't know what was wrong with him, but he would be lying if he said he wasn't even a little bit scared. The worst part was hiding it all from his friends. There was no way he could tell them about it. It wasn't that he thought his friends wouldn't care. The problem was they'd care too much. Everyone was so excited to go on the upcoming trip to Hokkaido, and even Christmas was nearing. He didn't want to ruin others' happiness by worrying them. Oh hey guys. So I meant to tell ya all that I have been feeling weird lately. My body feels weak, so I keep stumbling around like a headless chicken. Oh, and I also keep throwing up this golden liquid thingy. But don't worry about it though, I'm fine. Yeah, that would go well, had Kaminari thought. But there were still people he could tell about the situation, his parents. Currently, he was sitting at the kitchen table with his mom. His dad was still at work. I think I need to go and see a doctor, Denki finally managed to blurt out. Her mother visibly froze and lifted her gaze from the permission form she was filling. What's wrong? She asked, worried. Kaminari fumbled with his thumbs nervously. Lately, I've been feeling weird. Oh. How so? I feel physically weak, and I keep throwing up golden stuff seemingly out of nowhere. His mother's expression changed from concerned to something Kaminari had never seen before. Have you been taking your medicine? What did his medicine have to do with anything? Of course, I take it every day. Kaminari answered, a little annoyed. Denki had never understood why his mother had no trust in him when talking about the medicine. Almost every week, he received some form of "have you remembered to take your medicine" question. The blonde woman nodded in thought. The unknown expression remained on her face. She eventually said, I think. You shouldn't worry about it. What? Don't worry about it. What was that even supposed to mean? He just told her that he was throwing up golden stuff, and her mother didn't even question him. But Mom, I think I should go to a doc dash. I said not to worry about it, her mother repeated calmly, a kind smile on her face. Denki was confused. Okay then. Kirishima Idru, are you a morning person or a night person? Kirishima Idru, I wanted to know since me, you and Bakugo will be sleeping in the same hotel room. Bakugo is obs a morning person. Kaminari Denki, bro, I'm barely even a person. The trip to Hokkaido would last many hours. The plan was to go to the airport by bus, then fly to the island, and take another bus to the hotel. To improve the unity of all first years, as the teachers had said it, there were students from all departments on every bus. Kaminari didn't exactly know how he ended up there, but he was sitting next to a purple-haired dude. If he remembered right, he was from Class 1C, and he had fought against Midoriya at the sports festival. But man, it was hard to start a conversation with this guy. What's your name? Shinso Hitoshi. Nice to meet you. I'm Kaminari Denki. What's your quirk? I can brainwash people. Oh, that's so awesome. I have electricity. An awkward silence followed. Kaminari Denki didn't stand it for long. If animals could talk, which would be the rudest? What? If animals could talk, which would be the rudest? A cat. I knew we would get along, Shinso. 2 bus trips and 1 flight later, Denki had a new phone number to send cat memes to. If someone asked Kaminari to describe his trip to Hokkaido later, he would answer with a chaotical mini break with a pinch of salt. Everyone who wanted to test skiing had to take a 2-hour lesson of it first. In the span of that time, Kaminari face-planted into snow 2 times. Kirishima got a appealing video of one of his faceplants. Bakugo appeared in the video as a tiny laughing figure in the background. Kirishima and Kaminari surrendered themselves to the girls of Class 1A by agreeing to be their canvases for makeup. After an hour of poking at their faces, Kirishima and Kaminari got a funny selfie with them wearing the makeup. Bakugo reminded them again that they were morons. On the second day, Bakugo managed to get his hands on a snowmobile. With that, he managed to create terror as he tried to drive over several students of UA Midoriya and Todoroki were his main targets. Nobody got hurt in the end, which was a miracle. On the third day, Bakugo, Kirishima and Kaminari decided to go skiing together on the more difficult ski slopes. Kaminari didn't know how this was a good idea at all. Sure, Bakugo was a natural at skiing, which annoyed Denki more than necessary, but he and Kirishima weren't that experienced. Let's go yeet ourselves down the slopes, Kaminari declared as the 3 were getting ready to go. Don't say it like that. So this was the famous feeling of I effed up, Kaminari thought as he was skiing down a very steep slope. Adrenaline was humming through his veins, and at that point, it was the only thing keeping him from toppling down. He was an idiot, the biggest there was. The physical weakness he had been experiencing did not do well with the exhausting physical activity. His legs were going to give out, and his arms could barely hold on to the ski poles. Suddenly, his whole body went lax, and he went flying. It seemed his body decided to indeed yeet itself down the slope. The impact made a thud sound when Denki hit the ground. The fall didn't hurt since there was a comfortable pile of snow where he had landed. Kaminari, someone yelled. Judging from the sound of the voice, it was Kirishima. Kaminari attempted to get up. He found out that he couldn't move. He tried lifting his arm. He couldn't. He tried moving his leg. He couldn't. Panic started to rise. He could distantly hear yelling, but he didn't register the words. Sheet, 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 sheet. Why couldn't he FNG move? Did it feel like this to be paralyzed? 2 firm hands grasped his shoulders and lifted him from the snow. He took a gasping breath. The sweet relief of oxygen helped him calm down a bit. Oi, Sparky, get up. Bakugo. Kaminari could have hurt himself. He's fine. Let's continue. What is it, Kaminari? I can't. Can't what? Bakugo asked. I can't get up. I can't move, Kaminari answered honestly. He felt himself tear up. Sheet, he wasn't going to cry because of this. He held the tears in. Aizawa Shota had acknowledged a long time ago that he can't take the problem children anywhere without somebody ending up hurt. It would be so much better to lock Class 1A's students up and never let them even lift a finger. Shota's life would be more pleasant and free that way. He swore that every time something happened he suffered a minor heart attack. Whether it was Bakugo getting kidnapped or Midoriya getting hurt, he always felt the same dark dread creep into his soul. Shota had hoped that once, just once, their holiday would have gone by without anything bad happening. But living had never been that easy. Kaminari, Kirishima, and Bakugo have already been gone a long time, one of his students, Uraraka, stated. Slight worry could be detected from her. I'll try calling Kirishima, Yayarozu offered, taking out her phone. Minutes later, she said, it doesn't connect. There must be a lack of Wi-Fi on their end. Sun had already set. All of 1A, except the 3, were hanging around. The hotel lobby. Shota and Hisashi had been waiting for all of the students to show up. It seemed the 3 were missing. Aizawa sighed. He was just about to address the class, but then the hotel's door burst open. Shota felt his heart drop at the sight. Kirishima's hair was down, having lost its volume in the harsh winter weather. Bakugo, who had kicked the door open, looked alarmingly anxious. Kaminari was bundled up in Kirishima's arms, looking nothing like the cheerful boy Aizawa knew. A broken doll. That's how Kaminari looked like to Shota. "We need to go to a hospital," Bakugo yelled. Class 1A and Aizawa were shocked at the concern in the blonde's voice. "What happened?" Ashido asked with panic. "We don't know exactly. Kaminari isn't able to move," Kirishima said. He sounded like he was about to start crying. "It's a 22-hour drive from the nearest hospital. We have to call the emergency number." It took 5 minutes and 34 seconds to call help and get the 3 boys settled with the others. Kaminari still wasn't able to move. The boy looked distressed and small, having been placed in the middle of the 2 taller boys on a couch. Shota felt the familiar presence of concern. The polite members of the hotel staff and other teachers were informed of the situation at hand. Kirishima told 1A, Aizawa and Yamada of what had happened. When it had become clear that Kaminari wasn't able to move, Bakugo and Kirishima had removed his and their skis and walked from the ski runs back to the hotel. The red-eyed teens had taken turns to carry Kaminari. They hadn't been able to call for assistance because none of them had Wi-Fi. None of the students or teachers knew why Kaminari had suddenly lost the basic function of his body. Shota sighed deeply. He needed a salary raise. Bakugo wasn't stupid. Actually, he was far from being stupid. And among these idiots that followed him everywhere, he was the only one who had any brain cells. He wasn't blind either. He could tell something was up with Dun's face. He first noticed that something was wrong at school when he and the other 4 extras had been eating lunch. His friends had been talking and sharing those imbecilic jokes while Bakugo had focused on eating and maintaining his intelligence. Katsuki was an observant person, so it hadn't taken him long to notice Sparky's hands trembling. It hadn't been that noticeable, but still enough for Bakugo to take a note off. That in itself hadn't been weird. Maybe Sparky was just anxious or some shit, but when the trembling had continued to happen several days in a row, Bakugo had known it wasn't normal. Dun's face also kept zoning out a lot during conversations. In some lessons, Bakugo had decided to observe the other blonde. He had noticed that Pikachu had a lot of trouble maintaining his focus, also during class more than usual. Sparky tripped a lot, and every time he would make a joke about his clumsiness. Bakugo knew there was more to it. Katsuki, shitty hair, and Dun's face shared a room in the hotel, so Bakugo had a perfect chance to continue examining the teen. Katsuki didn't care, damn it. He just happened to take notice. Dun's face's legs and hands trembled several times a day, he loosed his focus more often, and he looked exhausted all the time. The boy didn't act any different from usual. He was still a goofy and cheerful little fucker. That was the reason Bakugo didn't say anything about it. Sure, something was going on, but since the others seemed fine for the most part, Bakugo had no reason to interfere. Bakugo regretted not interfering when he suffered a little fright in the form of a yellow blur passing him in high speed and crashing down on a pile of snow. "Kaminari!" Shitty hair yelled behind him. Bakugo changed his course and slid down to where Kaminari was. "What the hell was that?" he asked in a loud voice. "Are you okay, Kaminari?" Kirishima asked when he reached the other 2. Worried-looking shitty hair lifted Kaminari from the snow when it became clear he wasn't doing that himself. The blonde took a sharp inhale. His eyes were wide and he looked scared. Bakugo decided that he hated that expression on Pikachu's face. "Oi, Sparky, get up. Please, get up." "Bakugo!" Kaminari could have hurt himself. "I think you know that. He's fine. Let's continue." "You have to be fine. You're always fine." Kaminari opened his mouth and stammered out, "I dash." "What is it, Kaminari?" Shitty hair asked. "I can't," Sparky stated, looking like he realized something. "Can't what?" Bakugo asked. An uncomfortable feeling started to grow somewhere inside of him. "I can't get up. I can't move," Kaminari answered. Katsuki was shocked. "Did you hurt yourself?" Kirishima questioned. His tone conveyed panic and worry. "No, The fall didn't hurt at all. The snow softened the landing. I don't know why this is happening. This was really FNG bad. Bakugo thought back to the weird things he had noticed about Kaminari. What was happening now undoubtedly had a connection to those things. Katsuki should have said something about it. Okay, we have to take you to a hospital, Kirishima declared. He was still holding Kaminari up. Katsuki immediately knew what they had to do. Bakugo dropped his ski poles and took off his skis quickly. He leaned down and removed the other blonde skis. Sparky's ski poles were nowhere to be seen, probably dropped during the fall. With one smooth movement, he lifted Kaminari completely from the snow into his arms. Kaminari let out a yelp in surprise. "What are you doing, Kakin?" Kaminari asked in a high-pitched tone. "We have to get going, idiot. Since you can't move, me and Shitty Hair have to take turns to carry your useless but I don't want to get FANG hypothermia," Bakugo explained calmly. Even with their warm winter clothes, a long PRD in the cold could cause some serious damage. Sparky sniffed. "Your appealing use of language never ceases to astonish me." "Shut up." Kaminari's neck was relaxed, so his head looked to be in an uncomfortable position. It was almost as if his whole body was paralyzed. Bakugo moved him a bit so that Pikachu's head was leaning against Katsuki's chest. The change in position seemed to annoy Kaminari. "I feel like a noodle. My body doesn't move on its own. You are just tossing me around." Dunce's face whined, the dramatic little sheet. Bakugo didn't bother to come up with an answer to that. Kirishima was awfully quiet, Bakugo realized. He turned his eyes towards the redhead. Hair for Brains was frowning, maybe thinking about something. He was tearing up, Katsuki noted. Hiafanji hated seeing his friends like this. Kirishima had copied Bakugo by leaving all of his skiing equipment in the snow. When he noticed Bakugo's gaze, he nodded. In a mutual understanding of what had to be done, they started their slow walk towards the hotel. "Try to call someone, Shitty Hair," Bakugo ordered after they had walked a while. Kirishima took out his phone. "Man, there's no Wi-Fi." "Well, shit." The trio continued moving on in silence. Bakugo's arms slowly started to hurt from the additional weight, but he ignored it. The uncomfortable feeling inside him kept growing. Suddenly, he was hit with a memory from not too long ago. He recognized that feeling now. "Oi, Kakin! What are you sulking about over here? Aren't you here 'cause you were worried too? Right? Be honest." That time he hadn't said it out loud, but he had been worried about Shitty Hair and Deku. He was worried now too. Kaminari was taken to the hospital by a nurse with a teleportation quirk, and Human Caterpillar went with him. In Hokkaido, there are only a few hospitals but a lot of accidents, so we have to come up with fast ways to transport our patients, had the nurse explained when she had appeared out of thin air and scared everybody. The rest of 1A and Living Microphone were left in the hotel lobby. The Baku squad had wanted to go with Kaminari, but Aizawa had ordered everyone to stay. "Okay, my listeners. It is time to go to your rooms. It's already late. I know you all are worried about your friend, but you still have to sleep." Bakugo felt disgusting. There was sweat under his clothes, and his blonde hair was greasy. "I'll take a shower," Katsuki announced to Kirishima when they were finally in their hotel room. Kirishima gave a little nod. Bakugo could tell he was thinking about Pikachu. He went into the bathroom with a heavy sigh. The shower with a bad water pressure was located there. He took off his clothes and left them carelessly on the floor. The red-eyed boy pulled the shower curtain closed and was just about to start the water flow, but then he noticed something from the corner of his eye. There were tiny golden drops all over the wall next to the shower. They looked kind of appealing, to be honest. Bakugo had never seen a substance like this before. There was no way this was melted gold. At room temperature, gold would be in solid form. To inspect further, he touched one of the drops lightly with the tip of his finger. A small-scale electric shock went through him the moment his finger made contact with the substance. Bakugo pulled his finger away quickly. "What the hell? I have never seen anything like this before. It seems as if your nervous system is partly detached from your brain. We cannot say what is causing it. Since your vital organs are still working, your nervous system is sending messages between your brain and body. This Whatever this is, seems to affect your physical movements only, explained the doctor who had been examining Kaminari for quite some time. This must be a doing of a quirk. No other medical reason would explain it otherwise. Have you been affected by a quirk recently? Kaminari tried to shook his head, but then he remembered he couldn't. I'm pretty sure that I haven't. Is there anything you can do? Aizawa-sensei asked from the doctor. He had been staying by Kaminari's side. Denki felt bad for causing so much trouble for his tired teacher. Unfortunately, no. I think we should just give it some time. If this doesn't pass on its own, further examination will be needed. And that's how Kaminari and Aizawa ended up staying the night at the hospital. Kaminari hadn't mentioned his earlier symptoms to anyone. His mother had said not to worry about it, and he trusted her. Besides, he didn't want to worry his friends. It seemed to be too late for that, though. When Kaminari woke up, he was able to move again. The window was covered in thin ice, snowflakes creating a mesmerizing pattern. Birds chirped outside, their twittering sounding like chattering between old friends. The weather looked absolutely appealing, easily betraying the biting cold that nipped at people's exposed flesh. The room walls were white, so the boy with bright eyes and yellowish blonde hair stood out from his surroundings clearly, like a star in the dark sky. Kaminari was eating a slightly disgusting hospital breakfast when Aizawa came in. I heard from the doctors that you can move again. How do you feel? I feel fine. I don't know what happened, but it seems like it's completely gone. Can we go back now? That wasn't exactly a lie. There were no symptoms of inability to move, but well. Kaminari could feel his hand shaking a bit when he stuffed a spoonful of tasteless porridge in his mouth. Aizawa sighed and rubbed the back of his head. Kaminari was glad that his teacher didn't notice the slight trembling of his limbs. The doctors are gonna do one final checkup, and then the nurse with the teleportation quirk will take us back. Cool. After the quick examination, they finally left the hospital. Kaminari had used all of his willpower to contain the trembling so that the doctor didn't notice it. Kaminari stepped into the hotel lobby. Immediately, his golden eyes found red ones. Denki didn't have time even to say anything before he was wrapped in tight a hug. I was so worried. I thought that maybe you wouldn't be able to move ever again. And then you couldn't become a hero, and Kirishima was babbling while tightening his arms around Kaminari. At this rate, Denki wouldn't be able to breathe. Hey bro. I'm fine now. Kirishima let go of him. Kirishima's vermilion eyes were full of relief. Kaminari felt a warm feeling in his chest, and he gave a comforting smile at the redhead. He was just about to open his mouth, but then a voice asked behind Kirishima, "What happened to you?" The question was asked by Jairu. The girl was standing next to Yaoyorozu. Kaminari observed that all of his classmates were in the hotel lobby, and everyone was looking at him. Some looked curious and some relieved. Well, the doctors didn't know. Kaminari announced to his class. A brief moment of silence followed. What the hell? How could they not know? That's literally their effing job. Kaminari's eyes locked with Bakugo's, who had started to walk towards him while talking. Aizawa, who had walked into the hotel behind Denki, explained before Kaminari could. The doctors said that they had never seen anything like what happened to Kaminari. The only explanation could be a quirk. Since Kaminari doesn't recall coming in contact with a quirk, we do not know why this happened. Bakugo reached Kirishima and Kaminari. He gave an intense look at Kaminari, and the blonde could feel a shudder run through his spine. Denki felt like Bakugo was trying to inspect him, looking for a small crack in Denki's carefree demeanor. Kaken. You must have been worried too. You do care abo dash. Kaminari's speech was cut off by an angry growl. Kaminari Denki, I know Aizawa-sensei and the hospital have called you already, but I still decided to send you a text. Kaminari Denki, I'm fine now, out of the hospital already. I'll be coming home soon. We are just about to leave. Kaminari Shizuka, hi honey. I was so worried when your teacher and the hospital called. I'm glad to hear that you are okay. Have a safe trip home. The teachers and Udata students said their goodbyes to the wonders of Hokkaido on their 4th day there. The trip had come to an end, and it was time to go home. Students started their 2 days long holiday and would come back to school on December 26th. The idea of improving the unity of all first years was thrown away like trash. Minoma and other students like Bakugo had caused so much unnecessary quarrel that the teachers did not have the mental strength to continue. Kaminari's little accident was the final straw, and so all the first-year classes were traveling back to Mizudafu in their own buses. The teachers wanted to give 1A some together time after what had happened. Denki was grateful for their thoughtfulness as he was sitting between Mina and Siro. I was wondering if we could share some fun childhood stories about our past Christmas parties or something. Hagakure spoke up. The students had been unusually silent till now. That's a great idea. Ida replied enthusiastically, waving his karate hand with chopping movement. It didn't take long for all of the students to start chattering to each other. Seemed like the whole class except Bakugo, who looked bored, was included in the conversation. Kaminari made a conscious decision to stay quiet for now. After all, he had no memories to share. How old were you when you stopped believing in Santa Claus? I think I was around 4. I was 3. That's so young. I was like 6 or something. My parents never made me believe in him in the first place. Really, Ojiro? That kinda sucks, man. It's so nice to believe in magic and stuff as a child. Did all of your families have fried chicken on Christmas Day? We did and still have. I swear that one day I'll be so bored with that stuff. Yeah, same, but what about Christmas cake? I love it. You, me too. My family does it differently from traditional. Instead of strawberries, we use raspberries. My mom is allergic to those, so that's why. We don't celebrate Christmas, Todoroki added bluntly to the conversation. I'm sorry to hear that, Todoroki. Kaminari hid a sad smile with his hand. Todoroki's bluntness and his lack of social skills were funny sometimes. But the not celebrating part was not. What about you, Kaminari? How did your family use to spend Christmas? Uraraka asked suddenly. All eyes turned towards him. Kaminari blinked at the unexpected attention. I don't know. You see, I have no memories of my early childhood, like at all, the blonde answered with hesitance, flashing an awkward smile. There was a shocked silence. Kaminari felt confusion growing inside him stronger every second. Was it weird that he had no memories? Why was everyone looking at him with such wide eyes? I am sorry to hear you have amnesia, Kaminari ribbit, Tsuyu said, apologetic. Kaminari had noticed that Tsuyu had a habit of tipping her finger against her mouth while speaking. She was doing it now too. I don't have amnesia? Kaminari said, now very confused. Then how come you have no memories? Tokoemi questioned. People don't normally have any clear childhood memories, right? I just don't remember any of mine. This time it was Midoriya who spoke up. Childhood memories can indeed be a little hazy, but most people remember stuff, even quite well. I, for example, have exceptionally coherent memories from that time. I don't think it's normal to not have any memories whatsoever. Midoriya's talking turned into mumbling. Childhood amnesia or infantile amnesia means that someone is unable to remember their early childhood before the age of 2 to 4 years. It's very common, and not necessarily a sign of any brain injury or external trauma, Yayazoro explained in a calm tone, and then continued by stating, if your first memories are soon after that age span, it should be normal. What was the first thing Kaminari could remember? He let his mind wander as far as it could. An image of a doctor flashed before him. This medicine is for your quirk. See, as an electric type, your quirk could hurt your developing body. Electricity is dangerous for the regular human body. Almost all people with element-based quirks. When did that happen again? He had been around 7 years old? Kaminari could feel the blood from his face disappear. He was probably pale at this point. Well, me and my friends once. Mina changed the subject by telling a story about how she and her friends had ruined her parents' Christmas cooking on accident. Mina was an emphatic person, so she had probably noticed Denki's discomfort. Kaminari tried to think harder. Did he have any earlier memories? But no matter how hard he tried to think, nothing came to mind. Mina had used vanilla conditioner, Kaminari noted irrelevantly. The faint smell of vanilla settled on the back of Denki's tongue, reminding him of the scent candles his mother loved to buy. "Hi, Mom, Dad." Kaminari greeted cheerfully as he took off his shoes. He was gifted with a second hug of the day by his mother. "I'm so relieved that my baby is okay." The teen made a gagging noise at that. "I'm not a baby, Mom. You will always be my baby. Even when you become an old man," the blonde stated with a laugh. "I'll go unpack some stuff." Denki huffed and ran to his room, waving hello to his father on the way. "No running inside," his dad ordered when he passed him. It did not take long to throw his stuff into the different parts of his room. When he was ready, he stopped in the middle of the messy space in thought. How was he going to ask about the lack of memories? And why weren't his parents more worried about what had happened to him in Hokkaido? Denki sighed and rubbed his eyes. There were so many questions and not any answers. He sauntered back to the living room, where his parents had been watching TV. "Mom, Dad," he started saying, a bit nervous, "why don't I have any memories of my early childhood?" It was best to ask clearly and not vaguely. He had never brought this topic up with his parents, but now it was high time to do so. What he hadn't expected was getting two wide-eyed looks. Kaminari was taken aback by the fear that was visible in their eyes. Denki knew that he had received these kinds of looks from his parents, but not so openly before. "You don't have any memories? You haven't mentioned this before," his dad pondered, morphing his face from scared to something else as quickly as the expression had appeared. Denki was shocked into silence. His parents didn't know about his lack of memories? In a way, he felt relieved because it meant that they had nothing to do with it. Or did it? "I don't know why you don't have them. Do you want to hear about your childhood, Denki?" his mom asked, looking like she would any day. Kaminari gave a nod of confirmation. His mother and father started sharing funny stories from his childhood. The whole time they looked happy, filled with nostalgia. However, Kaminari couldn't shake the memory of the scared expressions he had seen. Their talking was robotic at times, seeming as if they had rehearsed all of it before. As if it was a play with a script, and his parents were the actors. After an hour, Kaminari went back to his room. Denki wasn't able to sleep. His mind was filled with a futile tussle of conflicting thoughts. While the rest of the world embraced their dreams, their 8 hours of rest, he tossed and turned around his bed. Finally, he gave up and rolled off his bed, dragging a warm blanket with him. Kaminari had discovered that when his brain was filled with so many things, the best way of clearing it up was by writing. Denki took out a notebook filled with crappy jokes, tiny thoughts and doodles. He started writing a list with a blue inked pen. "All the weird stuff about me. No childhood memories. I knew this before, but I did not know it was abnormal. I feel weak, trembling, stumbling, losing mobility, etc. The golden liquid, like, what's up with that? My parents are acting weird secrets?" Kaminari read through the list after writing it all down. It didn't help his restlessness much. He felt a bit thirsty, so he decided to get a glass of water from the kitchen. Trying to be quiet at 2 a.m. was an impossible task. Every step sounded like 1,000 elephants marching, and every creak made Kaminari wince. He made it to the kitchen safely and turned on the tap. The flow of the water was the loudest thing Denki had ever heard. He filled one big glass of water and started to walk back to his room. Kaminari was trying to avoid the creaking of floorboards, but then he stopped moving because he heard a sudden rise of voice from his parents' bedroom. It sounded like they were bickering about something. Curiousness consumed him, and he carefully pressed his ear to the bedroom door. Guilt was also present, but he chose to ignore it. "We have to do it before he finds out." "And how? We do not have those kinds of connections." "But Kazuhiko has. He has been working with those people for a long time." There was a brief moment of silence. "Are you sure? This is our son that we're talking about." "I think you know that, Rokuro. But we cannot take that risk. If he or someone from that hero school finds out, our lives will be over. He has all the symptoms Kazuhiko said he would get. We are so near for this to be over. I know that. We do what we must. We have been keeping up with this for years. It is no time to give up. I'll call Kazuhiko tomorrow." The conversation quieted down, and Denki could hear a distant sound of sheets rustling. With guilt in his heart, he sneaked silently back to his bedroom. The cold water in the glass had made all the warmth disappear from Kaminari's fingers. He took a sip from the glass and crawled back to his safe bed. There must be a valid reason for the secrets his parents were keeping from him. Sure, the things his parents had said sounded very suspicious, but the blonde had only heard a part of the conversation. It was only out of context, Kaminari reasoned in his mind. He was certain that his mom and dad wanted the best for him. Kaminari had managed to sleep for a few lousy hours. It was still early as he made his way to breakfast. His parents were sleeping since they had no work on Christmas Eve. The golden-eyed boy opened the fridge, his skin forming goosebumps, as the cold air from the fridge mixed with the room temperature one. Denki secured the blanket, that he had taken from his bed, around his shoulders to avoid the coldness. His sleepy gaze found a tuna pasta from the corner of the fridge. With a shrug, he decided to eat it for breakfast. There was something so freeing about doing things wrong, for Kaminari. Taking all the blankets off his bed and sleeping on the floor, wearing hoodies over fancy clothes, having pasta for breakfast and cereal for dinner. Small acts of rebellion against the idea that there was only one way to live his life. Refusing to conform, even if it was only for his sake. He was finishing his meal when his mother walked into the room. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" his mom asked with a smile. Kaminari answered with a smile of his own. "I slept well. I ate pasta for breakfast." "The pasta was meant for lunch. Now we have to make something else. Besides, pasta is not a proper breakfast." The blonde-haired woman's tone was slightly scolding. It felt weird to Denki, acting so normally, after hearing the conversation from yesterday. He shook the thought from his head. Everything would be fine, and his parents would tell him everything when they were ready. "I know, Mom. I was just too lazy to make anything else." Kaminari did not own a lot of money, so buying Christmas presents for his friends would be expensive. He had decided to make gingerbread cookies for the Baku squad and Christmas cards for the whole class. He had asked his mom to buy ingredients and materials for those before the trip to Hokkaido. He put on his headphones to listen to some music while baking. He blasted on a random song as he started taking out all the baking equipment for the cookies. He recognized the song as soon as he heard the first notes, and couldn't help but smile. This song was his power song. If he felt insecure about his abilities or otherwise sad, he would listen to it. "You've been betrayed, you've been knocked down. Hurt by the way they've pushed you out." Kaminari wasn't good at baking, and that's why he had decided to not make the gingerbread cookies from scratch. His mom had bought cookie dough from the store, so he would only have to give the dough shapes and decorate them. You were never made to fit the mold. Be a supernova and explode. You're born to light it up with your electric love. You make them feel afraid because you're dangerous. Kaminari sniggered when he thought of the cookies he was going to make. Each of his friends would get a personal design. He was no artist, but he was quite good at drawing, so it should be remotely easy to make the cookies recognizable. They'll never understand, 'cause you're a mystery. They can't contain your energy, 'cause you are lightning. After baking the cookies, he would get started with the cards. Kaminari would spend his 2 days of free time baking and making silly Christmas cards, but that was more than fine with him. There was no better gift than seeing his friends happy. "You are lightning. What the hell are these supposed to be?" Bakugo inquired, expression unreadable. Kirishima, who had been examining his bag of shark-shaped gingerbread cookies, looked over to Bakugo and a moment later snorted. "Are those Pomeranians?" Kaminari tried to keep his poker face, but it was already cracking. "Yes." From the corner of his eye, Kaminari could see Siro hide a smile behind his hand. Mina stood next to Siro, holding her bag of pink alien cookies. Her lips twitched in mirth, but she decided to stay silent for her own good. Hand-shaped burn marks wouldn't look good on her skin. Bakugo raised his eyebrow. "You made these extras cookies that reminded you of them, and for me, you made white fluffy dog cookies." Bakugo's tone was scarily calm. Kaminari felt himself sway lightly, almost losing his balance, but gained it back swiftly. Why was the common room so cold? Was it because it had been abandoned for a couple of days? He was losing his focus elsewhere again, Kaminari noted, and forced himself to smirk at Bakugo. Kaminari didn't share Mina's self-preservation. "Well, I did give them an angry expression." The meaning behind his words registered fast, and a second later Kaminari was running and screaming for his life as Bakugo chased him around the common room. Kaminari ran towards Midoriya, who happened to be nearby. The green-haired boy had been chatting with Uraraka. Midoriya's eyes widened as Kaminari hid behind the poor boy. Deku! Vermilion eyes raging, little explosions sparking from his hands, Bakugo made his way towards Midoriya. Midoriya let out a tiny squeak and stepped away from Bakugo's path of revenge. "You were supposed to protect me." Kaminari whined and tried to escape. Bakugo got a hold of his collar, but Kaminari managed to wiggle out of it in his panic. "Sorry, you're on your own," Midoriya said, not sounding a bit apologetic. When did he become a sassy individual? Uraraka giggled in the background. In the end, the big clock on the wall saved Kaminari from a trip to the recovery girl. Somewhere between Kaminari slipping under a table for protection and Bakugo screaming at him, the time has passed so that it was 8. It was the usual time that the explosive blonde went to sleep. Kaminari was still crouching down under the table where he had gone to avoid getting burned, when Bakugo decided to abandon his non-successful chase and head to sleep, muttering under his breath something about idiots. Kaminari stayed there a while, confused and breathing, wondering why Bakugo had suddenly left. His chest ached in a way it definitely shouldn't after a not-evener exercise. He had just done a bit of running around the room, and he still felt like he had run a marathon. The golden-eyed blonde took a deep breath, which sounded stuttering to his ears. Kaminari was reminded of reality when a spiky redhead popped into his view. Kaminari blinked as he registered Kirishima, who was peering under the table. "You okay?" asked Kirishima, his tone questioning. "Yeah, just a little out of breath." "Liar." Kirishima extended his hand to help Kaminari get up. The blonde took his hand, which was a lot warmer than his own. Soon after, Kaminari was standing next to his taller friend. Kirishima's eyes were on him, his gaze surprisingly intense. He frowned a little. "I've been wondering." Kaminari swallowed, feeling a bit lightheaded. It was hard to concentrate on the other's words. "Yeah. Focus, Denki, damn it. Are you okay?" The question was asked with genuine worry. Kaminari couldn't find words, his tongue suddenly feeling heavy. Some feeling was consuming him, slowly but surely. Fear. But why fear? Why would he be scared? What was he scared of? Kirishima must have seen his startled expression as he hurried to say, "I mean, after what happened in Hokkaido. We don't know what caused it, and I just wanted to make sure." Relief filled him, and he was just about to blast on a smile and answer, but then he hesitated. He was going to say everything was fine, but that again would be lying. Kaminari made a quick survey of his surroundings. Some students were hanging around the common room, sharing their Christmas break happenings with others. The distance between them and the other students was just big enough that the others wouldn't hear what he said. He could tell Kirishima, Kaminari realized. He could tell his friend everything about what was going on with him. But that thought alone filled him with dread. And he didn't know why. Why he felt the way he did. Why was he scared? Kaminari snapped his attention back to Kirishima. Kirishima looked so sincere, and a part of Kaminari knew that he should tell Kirishima. He should tell someone. He opened his mouth to finally answer, but instead of confession out came, "Nothing else has happened since then. I feel fine. I should go? I should go. Bye, see ya." He spluttered, quickly turning away from now the confused expression of his friend, and speed walked away. He swore he could feel Kirishima's eyes burning holes in his back. He felt like everybody was looking, even though he knew no one was, too engrossed in their conversations to notice him panicking and escaping from the situation. He stumbled to his dorm room, heaving a breath and sitting down on his bed, just to think. The space around him was a bit messy, a backpack filled with clothes thrown on the floor, some other items out of their places. "Don't worry about it," had his mother said when he had told her about his weird symptoms. And this whole time, Denki had been repeating this phrase on his head, assuring himself that he didn't want to worry his friends. But he was already worrying them, so it was pointless now. His parents were acting suspiciously anyways. It would be best to tell someone. So why didn't he? Denki's world was spinning, his head filled with so many thoughts. Kaminari knew he had felt real fear when Kirishima had simply asked him if he was okay. It had been really sweet too. It was like his friends were more caring than his not even worried parents. Why would he feel fey and oh? Realization hit Kaminari like a bullet to the heart. He was scared of what would happen if people found about his symptoms. Then he would be forced to go to a doctor and get a diagnosis. What if he was sick? What if he was dying? And if it was something bad, then he couldn't continue to pursue his dream of becoming a hero. His life would change forever. Right from the start, he hadn't cared about his friends. He had been scared for himself. Oh, how selfish. Kaminari felt his eyes burn. He blinked and felt something wet roll down his cheek. It reached his lips, making his tongue taste salty. All the things he had been feeling hit him at that moment. A part of him had known that it would be better to tell someone. But a bigger, more selfish part of him had been scared of the answer. The answer to all of his questions. What were his parents hiding? What was happening to him? So for the past months, he had lied to everyone, including himself. Kaminari had buried his real feelings so deep inside of him that even he didn't notice. But now he did, and it hurt. The blonde let the tears fall, and he curled into himself and hugged a pillow for comfort. Kaminari pressed his face into the soft material, muffling his crying gasps. He could faintly notice the smell of his citrus shampoo lingering around him, wafting from his silky pillow. He cried for pure self-pity for who knows how long. Eventually, he fell asleep like that, exhausted from the intensity of everything. Todoroki Shoto, hello. Kaminari Denki, hi Todoroki. This must be the first time you have sent me a text. Todoroki Shoto, I have a question. Midoriya said you would be the best person to answer it. And thank you for the Christmas card, by the way. Kaminari Denki, no problem. Ask away. Todoroki Shoto, what is a meme? Kaminari Denki. Kaminari Denki, so you don't know yet? Lucky for you, you have sought out the MSTR of memes. Kaminari Denki, we are going to have so much fun. The day after Kaminari's little mental breakdown, he apologized to Kirishima for his sudden bizarre behavior the day before. The blonde came up with a couple of baseless excuses and then turned the whole thing into a joke. Just like that, the situation was fixed and forgotten. The next week passed like any other. Classes were boring, Aizawa-sensei looked like he wanted to murder someone, and Kaminari started teaching Todoroki about memes. And that, if nothing else, was hilarious. The red-white-haired boy was very confused and clueless about the subject, but still endearingly eager to learn. Kaminari made PowerPoint presentations about memes and took a new habit of sending memes with explanations to Todoroki daily. The so-called Deku squad was surprised when Todoroki suddenly started to reference memes in their conversations, not knowing that Kaminari was behind it. It formed into some kind of secret between him and Todoroki. Kaminari was pulled aside by his friends a couple of times during the week. They would ask about his well-being, undoubtedly the Hokkaido incident, in their minds. Every time it happened, Kaminari would flash a reassuring smile and lie through gritted teeth. Kaminari promised that he wouldn't lie to himself anymore, but he couldn't make that same promise when it came to his friends. He knew what he should do, but couldn't bring himself to do it. He tried a couple of times and got close to admitting everything during a chat with Jiro. In the end, he chickened out. The word pathetic could be written on his forehead at this point. And if Kaminari Googled sicknesses and symptoms more often then, well, it was only for him to know. Nothing matched his situation though. Some cancers did have some similar effects on a human body, which left a bitter taste in his mouth and a heart pumping faster with adrenaline-enforced dread. He did notice that his unwillingness to tell anyone was similar to that of a person suffering from an eating disorder. It wasn't the same at all, but in a way it was. Or maybe an athlete trying to hide an injury in order to keep performing. The golden liquid wasn't a rare sight at all. Denki spotted drops of it on his clothes and sheets. This caused him to do laundry more often than normal, which deserved a couple of questioning looks from his classmates. Those two he made go away with jokes. His other symptoms didn't get any worse, but they didn't get any better either. A considerable part of his day consisted of hiding trembling of limbs, preventing himself from looking tired or falling onto his face and such. So it came as no surprise when Kaminari woke up with a skull-splitting headache one appealing Wednesday morning. How could his life get any worse, some might ask. Like this, he would reply. Kaminari groaned as his hand reached for his phone, which was buzzing with an alarm. Denki's eyes squinted, trying to read the numbers on the bright screen. He blinked, rolled around, and tried to go back to sleep, feeling awful. Then something registered in his hazy mind, and he did a double take on the numbers on his screen. The rest of sleepiness was punched out of him by the sudden adrenaline rush of, "Sheet, I'm going to be late if I don't get up now." He stumbled up with the grace of a newborn deer, and did some kind of world record of the speed he did his morning routine in. Kaminari opened his dorm room, about to leave, but there was this nagging feeling in his brain, not the headache. He felt like he was forgetting something. He checked his school backpack quickly, and, since nothing seemed to be amiss, shrugged the feeling aside. There was no time to get breakfast, but at least he wouldn't be late for class. The first lessons passed, and Denki felt terrible the whole time, with his empty stomach and pounding head. He probably didn't look that good either, based on Jiro's frowning face. He told her that he had simply missed out on some sleep, too busy playing with a console game. Another lie to add to the ever-growing pile. But after a while he started to feel better. His headache went away without any medicine, and after school lunch, the hunger didn't bother him anymore. A part of Kaminari swore that it was easier to focus on things than it had been for some time. Even his hands didn't tremble as much when he took down his history notes. It was kind of weird if Denki thought about it. Soon it was afternoon, time for hero training with Aizawa-sensei. "Well then class. Today we are doing something we haven't in a while," Aizawa-sensei told his students. All of them were sitting in 1A's usual room, waiting to hear what today's training would offer. "I'm going to split you into pairs. Your mission is to tie your pair up or make them incapable of moving in some other way. Imagine yourself being the hero in this situation and your pair to be the villain. These fights will be done one by one, with the rest of the class watching from a monitoring room. Any questions?" Denki hoped he would get a nice, not too overly powerful pair. Anyone besides Midoriya, Todoroki, or Bakugo would be fine. Some questions later, the class went to change into their winter hero costumes, it being still cold and all. "You are paired with Bakugo," Aizawa told him, and moved onwards to assign the rest of the pairs. Well sheet. They were all standing in the monitoring room, aside from the first pair Tsuyu and Uraraka. Those two were going to a building located on the training grounds. All the battles would be held there. Denki sure had the worst luck. "Saru," he whined, turning towards the black-haired boy standing next to him, "I'm going to die. Remember to give me a nice funeral. I want flowers but not roses. Those are cliché. Sunflowers are my favorite, but they would be too happy looking for my funeral." He was sure to make himself appear as dramatic as he could, these being the last moments of his life after all. Shiro nodded solemnly and placed his hand on Kaminari's shoulder. "Don't worry. I'll make your funeral the best one there ever be." Kirishima appeared to Kaminari's other side, turning his grin to fake seriousness. "And I promise the same too. It will be a very manly funeral." "Brothers," Kaminari whispered emotionally, swiping a non-existent tear from the corner of his eye. "Bro," Kirishima responded, patting Kaminari's back. Their fake funeral planning was interrupted in the form of a red-eyed blonde grabbing Kaminari's collar and dragging him away. "No!" Kaminari whined, not ready to face his death. Why was Bakugo dragging him away anyways? It wasn't like their turn to fight would be anytime soon. Kirishima and Shiro waved at him as Kaminari got hauled around the corner, away from their sight. "Traitors." Kaminari straightened his back and turned to face Bakugo, ready to hear what the other had to say, raising his eyebrows. Kaminari had a sudden flashback from months ago when they had moved into the dorms, and Bakugo had dragged him away with a similar style to ask him to short-circuit. Bakugo's gaze was inspecting him, and Kaminari felt uncomfortable all of a sudden. "So, Kaken, what is so important that you have to drag me away to a private corner?" Kaminari wiggled his eyebrows for an annoying effect. Bakugo didn't react, his face remaining the same serious expression. Kaminari gulped. There was no way that was a good sign. The other blonde was usually way too easy to annoy. A moment of awkward silence passed. Bakugo's eyes wandered a little bit away. Something is going on. With you. Bakugo didn't sound comfortable at all, saying that. Alarm bells started ringing in Kaminari's head. The other had noticed something, hadn't he? I have no idea what you are talking about, Denki tried saying with a smile that felt way too nervous. Bakugo's eyes snapped back to his, and Kaminari was taken aback. Don't lie to me. Kaminari felt his throat tighten, panic flooding his veins. Tension was forming between the two blondes. If Bakugo was scary as his normal angry self, then serious Bakugo was nothing compared to that. This time it was Kaminari, who couldn't look straight at Bakugo anymore. Suddenly the wall next to them was more interesting. I don't think it's any of your concern. Bakugo gripped his collar, forcing Kaminari to look at him. Like hell it isn't. If we are going to fight, I want to make sure that. Bakugo was worried about hurting him. Kaminari was a little touched. Don't worry. I'm actually feeling great today, better than usual, Denki responded, trying to make it sound reassuring. So you admit everything isn't fine usually? Bakugo asked, his expression somewhere between irritated and grim. Shit, he screwed up. Abort mission, Denki. What new? I just dash. You are lying again. Bakugo yelled, shaking Kaminari a little. Kaminari shook himself from Bakugo's hold, feeling frustrated towards himself. He took a step backward, putting distance between them. They find there is this something. But I'm not going to tell you. I know that, I recognize that it would be fair to tell you, but I won't. I am feeling great today, so you don't have to worry about our fight. Kaminari's voice was now raising, mixed with frustration, panic and fear. Just please, leave it be, Bakugo. There was a moment of silence. Bakugo's red eyes meeting Kaminari's golden ones, filled with something Kaminari didn't recognize. Fine then, the other scoffed. Suit yourself. I at least tried. With that, Bakugo marched angrily away. Kaminari was left there alone, standing shocked. Kaminari Denki had never hated himself. He had been taught, from a young age, that loving and accepting yourself was always the most important thing in life. You can't love someone else if you don't love yourself first. Sure, he did have some self-confidence issues, especially when it came to his grades or Quirk, but nothing serious. But now, as the blonde turned around to see Bakugo's retreating back, Kaminari couldn't help but hate himself a little. Standing still was always a painful endeavor, but now, as the world spun slightly around him, it was even harder. Denki did feel better today, but no near fine or normal. It was all kind of funny, or maybe he just felt a bit funny, his mind wandering but still trying to focus on the battle before him. Tsuyu had won the first fight against Uraraka. They had been evenly matched during the fight, but Uraraka didn't have enough materials to use her quirk on. She had managed to make Tsuyu float, but Tsuyu used her tongue to tie her up in the process. The fight had ended, and Aizawa-sensei sent the next pair to the building. The monitoring screen was displaying Tokoyami and Sato, their battle just having started, movements of shadows flashing past the screen. Denki was pretty sure Tokoyami would win. The fight would be interesting to watch, but Kaminari found his mind elsewhere, consumed with guilt and worry. Kaminari had soon followed Bakugo back to the others, now standing again between Shiro and Kirishima, who watched the screen with keen interest. They had both welcomed him back happily, not noticing the tension on Kaminari's shoulders as he had faked a shallow smile. Anyone hadn't noticed the conflict between the two blondes, which was a small miracle. Kaminari had tried to see if anyone looked like they had heard something, taking an extra long look at Jiro, her having the best hearing and all, but it seemed like everyone had been focused on something else. Probably talking to each other about the current training and theorizing its outcomes. That was a relief because Kaminari didn't know what he would do if someone else started to have suspicions. Bakugo was very intelligent and extremely perceptive, so it was no wonder he had noticed something. It wasn't like Denki was able to hide everything, not even nearly so. And not to forget the biggest problem of the moment, the upcoming fight between him and Bakugo. He had to keep his performance normal, and honestly, his opponent being Bakugo, there were zero chances at winning. He just hoped Bakugo would fight like his usual self. So hey, Kirishima whispered to Kaminari's ear, tugging him a bit closer. What did Bakugo want to talk about? Kaminari swallowed, shifting on his feet. Nothing unusual. He just threatened to crush me in our upcoming fight. Kaminari cringed at his horrible lie. Oh, what did you say to him? He's been glaring at you this whole time. Sheet, Bakugo. Don't be this obvious. I just annoyed him a bit. Zero leaned in to join the conversation. He had been listening in the whole time. Dude, that was a bad idea. You two are gonna fight soon. Don't I know it? Kaminari sighed, shaking his head a bit. What is your tactic against him anyway? Kirishima asked. Now that was a good question. Run away and hope for the best? Zero snorted. Yeah, good luck with that. Kaminari sighed again. He seriously needed a plan. His two friends returned their attention back to the fight. Kaminari spared a brief glance at the screen too, noticing it wouldn't take long for Tokoyami to win. The bright blue light blazing from the monitoring screen made him squint, and he turned his eyes away yet again. It was best to at least try fighting against Bakugo, no matter the obvious outcome. So, what was the best way to battle against his explosive opponent? Kaminari hadn't yet fought against him, but he had learned a lot about Bakugo just by observing. His fighting style was an all-out offense, using his Quirk's propulsive abilities to close the distance between him and his opponents, followed by a bombardment of close-range attacks that often started with a powerful right hook. He was also more than capable of strategic planning and improvisation. Yeah, this wasn't going to work out for Denki at all. Bakugo was perhaps a better close-range fighter, but he could do long-ranged attacks well too. Kaminari wasn't good at close range, so his best bet was to keep his distance and dodge like crazy. Hell, he didn't possess any direct combat abilities at all. He relied on his Quirk almost completely. Finding a way to use his sharpshooting gear wouldn't be easy against Bakugo's intelligence. Maybe he could fire his disc-shaped pointers all over the building and hope that Bakugo accidentally stumbled on their path? On the other hand, using the pointers wasn't necessary since no one else would be in the same space during the fight. He could use his electricity freely. As a result, Denki could be a fairly difficult individual to face in one-on-one battle, especially for those that relied on close-quarters combat like Bakugo. Bakugo couldn't go near him recklessly either, Kaminari realized. Maybe he could at least put up a small quarrel to satisfy everyone. Kaminari was snapped back to the present by the quiet voice behind him. Jiro's tactic to use her sound blasts against Todoroki's ice is pretty good, but there's no way she can keep up. Denki brought his attention to the ongoing fight, noticing Jiro barely managing against Todoroki's ice attacks. Jiro was paired with Todoroki? When did their fight even begin? It must be the third one. No way Kaminari missed more than that. He had clearly been quite absorbed in his frantic thinking. Kaminari looked behind his back, noticing that the one to comment had been Shoji. Aoyama, who was near Shoji, nodded in agreement. Kaminari looked at the screen again, just in time to witness Todoroki's ice freeze Jiro, making her unable to move. Kaminari was a little disappointed that he had basically missed the whole fight, even if it was a short one. He took a deep breath, feeling more nervous as his own fight neared. Kaminari let his golden eyes roam around the room, taking in everybody's expressions that were filled with anticipation, anxiousness, or interest. To his left, Midoriya was taking notes in his familiar notebook. Kaminari tried to pay more attention to the training. It wasn't good for him to stress over everything at once, even if staying inside his own mind bubble was easier than watching the bright screen. It was educational to watch his classmates fight. They all had developed so much compared to the beginning of their first year. Midoriya didn't break his whole body using his Quirk, Bakugo wasn't nearly as arrogant, Todoroki could use his fire, Uraraka was better at combat, and everyone else too was more close to their common goal of becoming pro-heroes. Kaminari felt a swell of pride, soon washed away by his other, more negative emotions. The blonde wiggled in his place, anxious as battles were fought, and his own was nearing. Zero noticed his discomfort and laid a hand on his shoulder for comfort. Don't worry so much. It's going to be fine. Zero's tone was comforting, and Denki was once again filled with love towards his amazing friends. Yeah, I know. A lie. He wasn't sure things would be fine at all. Next up, Bakugo and Kaminari, announced their homeroom teacher's blank voice. Kaminari took a deep breath as he started to move towards the door, waving at his friends when they wished him good luck. Bakugo was silent as he reached the door first. Before the vermilion-eyed boy could touch the handle, the door opened as Koda and Hagakure walked back in, just coming back from the building where the two blondes were now headed. Kaminari's legs trembled slightly, a drop of cold sweat rolling down his forehead. He stepped through the door. Everything was dark. Gray, the walls and floor, the labyrinth-like surroundings around him creating the same feeling Denki had felt in his first week at U8 when he fought against two of his new classmates. This building was very similar to that. Denki didn't even notice if there were any differences. Even the smell was the same, electronics mixed with industrial odors. Denki touched lightly the rope hanging around his belt to make sure it was still there. To win, you had to make your opponent incapable of moving. There had been ropes and tapes in a box in front of the building's entrance door, where you could choose what to take freely. You didn't have to take anything if there was some other method you could use to incapacitate your opponent. Bakugo hadn't taken anything. Denki tapped the ground with his black boot to make some noise in the deafening silence. His similar-colored jacket with its white lighting shapes felt way too suffocating, sweat gathering under it. Like this tension was killing him. Kaminari was waiting for the voice mark that would start the training. He had no idea where Bakugo was. They had been instructed to their starting positions beforehand by their teacher. A sharp voice cut the silence like a blade and made Denki's heart skip a beat. This was like a horror game in real life, he thought. Heart beating like crazy, waiting for the beast to strike, constantly knowing it was coming, with no escape. The nervous student started walking forward, shooting his pointers into the walls. His plan currently was to be stealthy and get as many pointers as he could around the floor he was on. Would that be of any use? He didn't know, but it was better than nothing. He had turned around two corners when he heard a loud boom from the floor above him. He startled, stopping all movement. There were two possibilities why Bakugo would choose to announce his position. One, he didn't care that Denki heard. He could be blasting obstacles out of his way to spare time, get the fight quickly over with. Kaminari abandoned this theory immediately. Bakugo Katsuki didn't underestimate his opponents. Not anymore. Two, it was a way to lure Kaminari out, make him come to Bakugo. Maybe Bakugo didn't see any point in hide and seek, wanting to move into action. But that was also unlikely because Bakugo knew Kaminari, and Kaminari wasn't the type to seek out the danger headfirst. Those thoughts went through Kaminari's brain as he continued his plan in silence. Think Denki. He finished placing the pointers just in time to hear the almost noiseless footsteps somewhere near him, echoing in the empty halls. Option number 3 supplied Denki's mind helpfully. Bakugo left a grenade in his original position to make a distraction. This way Bakugo was able to cover the voice of his footsteps as he moved down the stairs and make Denki spend time on the thought process he just went through. Intelligent planning and improvising indeed, Kaken. Denki turned quickly around, maybe letting out a scared squeak, adrenaline rushing through his veins, making his hands spark with his quirk. Bakugo appeared around the corner, a brief flash of surprise appearing in his expression. It seemed like Bakugo hadn't anticipated finding Kaminari's location so quickly. The red-eyed blonde didn't hesitate to blast an explosion from his hand, which caused smoke to cloud Kaminari's vision. With reflexes only, Kaminari quickly let the sparks from his hands travel through his whole body, covering him in electricity, and jumping backward. Bakugo emerged from the smoke, propelling himself with an explosion, and extended his hand for a hit. Kaminari managed to avoid it, his energy-enforced jump having carried him through the air far enough. Bakugo's fist missed his head by a few centimeters. Don't let him close. Kaminari knew that Bakugo's movements were rapid, so he wouldn't have enough time to gather electricity to paralyze his opponent's movements. He needed distance immediately. He had only taken a few quick steps backward, letting small volts of electricity currents spark through his skin, wanting to make Bakugo back off, when the other student created a new explosion. The force of it made Denki fly to a wall. Kaminari's fraud worked. Bakugo hadn't dared to touch him. Denki's vision did a weird tilt, pain flaring in his back. The adrenaline in his body made him adjust in a matter of seconds. Well, at least there was a bit more distance. Denki didn't waste any time and let out 1,000,000 volts with a yell. This was enough to make Bakugo's movement halt for a brief moment, which gave Kaminari just enough time to get up and run the F away. He ran as far as his legs carried him, then sucked into sneaking quietly through halls and corners, not wanting Bakugo to spot him. Kaminari was panicking with no idea what to do. Hide behind a corner and wait for Bakugo? How would he make the other blonde unable to move anyway? He could use his quirk, but that would make him immediately short-circuit, and he would only cause his own loss. His vision swam, probably from the pain. He felt his hands and legs tremble, but the golden-eyed boy pushed it all aside. Now was not the time. Kaminari knew that Bakugo was capable of restraining Denki by only using his body. Denki was no near as physically strong as Bakugo, so that wasn't an option for him. There were ways for the physically weaker to incapacitate the stronger, but Denki knew he couldn't manage something like that, not with Bakugo. He would have to cling onto Bakugo from behind and press him against the floor. And that was impossible, since Kaminari wasn't fast enough for that. But Bakugo would only be able to restrain Kaminari if he was unable to use his electricity. Why hadn't he realized this earlier? Bakugo was trying to make Denki short-circuit. Or maybe knock him out. Kaminari just had to prevent that from happening, so keeping his distance was the best possible solution. How could he? Kaminari's thinking was interrupted when he heard an explosion from behind. He turned around, horrified at himself, just in time to see Bakugo approaching fast. Kaminari tried to crouch down, but he wasn't fast enough. Denki had zoned out. His symptoms caused him to lose focus, trapping himself in his mind, in his thoughts. The blonde hadn't even noticed Bakugo closing on him. Bakugo's destructive glowing hand approached Denki's head with speed and force, and Kaminari was ready to say goodbyes to his consciousness. But then the force slipped away from the blow, and Kaminari was able to, with some miracle, duck down. Bakugo flew over his head, landing a good distance away. It took a few seconds to process what happened. It wasn't a miracle. It had been hesitation. Denki rose from his crouching position, cold dread spreading from his heart. Bakugo Katsuki had just hesitated. In the middle of a fight. Suddenly, Kaminari was reminded of the many cameras observing all of their movements. Everybody had seen. There was no way they hadn't. Bakugo Katsuki didn't hesitate during a fight, no matter the opponent. It would raise questions neither of them could answer. For the first time in forever, Kaminari felt something hot, burning, and consuming. Denki's world was filled with anger, pure anger born from a mix of frustration, guilt, and fear. That's how anger worked, coming in like a brisk storm born from something else. It held no logic, and any other thoughts would be swept away like rainwater. Many regretted the things they said when angry. Red anger was meant to release emotions, not contain them. He turned around and saw Bakugo turn at the same time. There must have been something in his expression because Bakugo looked taken aback, eyes widening a little. How could you? Denki's voice was trembling, furious. They could all see, but they wouldn't hear what he said. Voices and sounds wouldn't reach the rest of his class. You hesitated. I saw. Don't try to deny it. Bakugo didn't say anything, looking calm. Somehow, this made Kaminari's anger grow. The always angry one was now holding back. Now, when there was nothing else than anger in the world. A part of Denki knew he wasn't being fair at all. Bakugo was worried about him. He was showing kindness. But right at that moment, Kaminari didn't care. At all. So, fueled by his anger, Denki did what he did the best, better than anyone else. He made Bakugo annoyed, made him feel angry. What? Nothing to say? I know Midoriya wouldn't have hesitated. Because you know what? He has more guts than you ever will. And oh, wasn't that a low blow? Kaminari regretted saying it instantly. Bakugo's expression changed fast, all the calmness blown away by harsh words. Words that weren't true. Bakugo growled, absolutely furious. With a big explosion, he propelled himself towards Kaminari, ready to land the blow he had failed to land just a moment ago. Kaminari knew he had done it this time. No backing out. Bracing himself for the pain, He closed his eyes tightly. He felt something pierce through him. But that second of weird feeling must have been his imagination. He waited for the blow to land. He waited. And waited? The blonde opened his eyes, and what he saw. Kaminari blinked, confused. The world around him was all wrong, lacking colors, movement, sound, everything. What the hell? Either Kaminari had gone colorblind, or the world turned black and white. Not figuratively, but literally. Everything was shades of gray, more gray, darker gray, white, lighter gray, and black. The world was all wrong. More worrying was the sight before him. Bakugo, with his furious expression, hair all messed up from static, just hovering there in the air. He was completely still, no sign of movement or life. As if someone had turned Kaminari's life into a very old movie and put it on pause. Kaminari could have stood there forever like an idiot, but some instinct in his body told him to move. So he did, circling unmoving Bakugo. No matter the angle he saw it from, the sight in front of him didn't change. Bakugo's once blonde hair looked light gray. All of him was just black and gray. Fascinated and super confused, Kaminari went to stand behind Bakugo. Nothing changed. Even though the situation was more than weird, Kaminari's mind still went back to his earlier thoughts. There were ways for the physically weaker to incapacitate the stronger. He would have to cling onto Bakugo from behind and press him against the floor. The only sensible conclusion was that this was just a bizarre dream. And since it was just a dream, he could do whatever he wanted. With a mental shrug, Kaminari hopped onto Bakugo's back, wrapping his legs around the taller one's waist. Just as he did so, his insides did a lurch, and oh, they were falling crashing with no grace onto the hard floor. Kaminari blinked. Suddenly, it didn't feel like a dream. It was just reality, back with its normal colors. But what? Something twitched under him, and Kaminari looked to see Bakugo. Denki was sitting on top of him while he was lying on the ground, confused and groaning because of the impact. Denki sat there, completely dumbfounded. He wasn't the only one. Bakugo muttered out a breathless, "What the effing hell?" A moment of more silence and shared confusion later, an uncertain voice of Aizawa-sensei reported through the announcement system. "It seems like Kaminari has won the battle." Then everything that just happened occurred to Denki. World-stopping, color-changing nothingness, where only he saw and moved. The monitors didn't come with speakers, only images of the ongoing battle visible. Midoriya could still imagine the sound that came from Kaminari's body hitting the wall, smoke from Kaken's quirk still lingering. The fight so far hadn't been that intense, the action just having started. But Midoriya couldn't shake the impression that there was something wrong with this fight. He saw it in the way Kaken's face was staying calm, and in the way his movements didn't seem as enthusiastic or forceful as usual. He heard a quiet inhale beside him. "Bakugo. Seems different from usual." Kirishima's tone was unsure, testing the waters. The red-haired boy had come to stand next to Midoriya when the fight between Kaken and Kaminari started. "What do you mean, Kirishima?" Hakigure asked. Her match with Koda ended not too long ago with her win. Midoriya wasn't the only one who had noticed something different with Kaken. Usually, Kaken would be yelling and fighting more aggressively, but now he's much calmer and serious. Midoriya frowned at the screen, almost like he doesn't want to be there at all. All the students in the monitoring room stared at the screen. Yayorozu nodded. "You two are right. That doesn't sound like typical Bakugo." "Yeah. He usually yells stuff like die die die," Siro sniggered. "Or," Mina added, "die you, damn nerd." Midoriya tuned out the rest of the conversation, focusing on Kaken, who was walking around the fighting area looking for Kaminari. "What's going on, Kaken? Why aren't you fighting with the same passion?" There was a loud sigh next to him, sounding exhausted. Midoriya turned to Kirishima and made sure that his tone was gentle. "Is everything all right, Kirishima?" Kirishima seemed to jump a little with surprise, his red gaze meeting Midoriya's green. "Yeah. It's just Kirishima's eyes wandered towards the fight. "I'm worried about Kaminari. He looks a bit sick, doesn't he?" Midoriya copied Kirishima, bringing his attention to the electric blonde. now that he focused on the blonde, he noticed that Kirishima was indeed right. Kaminari looked out of it, hair messy, dark circles around his eyes, sweat drops rolling down his forehead, while wandering aimlessly on the battlefield. Midoriya frowned mildly, feeling disappointed towards himself. How hadn't he noticed that Kaminari looked sickly earlier? Midoriya's fight against Kirishima was the next one, and also the last one. He had followed Kaken's fight but had also been thinking his strategy against Kirishima. Maybe that's why he hadn't noticed? Then something occurred to Midoriya. Do you think that's why Kaken isn't fighting like his usual self? Kirishima was about to answer, but then a shout interrupted him. Oh, Kaminari's about to lose painfully. On the screen, Kaken was flying towards Kaminari, fist raised, ready to punch. It was clear that Kaminari had no time to dodge. Everyone in the observation room held their breaths. Kaken's body language changed suddenly, the force behind the upcoming attack disappearing into thin air. Kaminari ducked down, and Kaken landed behind him, not even trying to land a blow on Kaminari. No way! For a tiny moment, Midoriya thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Because if he had saw right, it would mean Kaken had just hesitated and not finished the fight. There was no logical reason he would do that. Why didn't Bakugo finish the fight? Kaken's expression changed to calm realization, as if he was just now recalling what he did. Is he going easy on Kaminari? Kaminari stayed in his position for a moment too long, then slowly rose back on his feet. Midoriya couldn't see his expression. Kaminari's face was turned away from the cameras. That's Bakugo, our resident angry murderer. There's no way he is going easy on anyone. Midoriya had to agree with his classmates. There was something more going on. Kaminari turned around at the same time as Kaken did. Kirishima inhaled a quick breath that now sounded overly loud in the room, where everyone else had fallen silent. Kaminari. He looks really angry. Midoriya gaped at the monitor, sudden concern and confusion filling his mind. Because indeed, their usually bright and happy classmate was wearing a face that none of them had seen before. Wide angry eyes, hard lines, and a downturned mouth. I have never seen him angry before, Mina whispered, sounding horrified, but also a little impressed. Kaminari's mouth started moving. He was probably shouting something, but Midoriya had no idea what. Kaken was staying still. Midoriya wished he could see his expression. Yeah, Siro echoed Mina's tone. There was a big contrast between the Kaminari from a few moments ago that looked sick and tired, bruised and done, and this Kaminari currently before them, furious and sparking. Midoriya noticed Kaken's form tensing suddenly, with anger probably. A big explosion took over the screen, smoke filling the camera lenses. Sheet! Hey, we can't see! Yellow sparks of electricity danced in the smoky air, and the class couldn't see anything except a flash of bright light. No one spoke. Slowly, the smoke cleared away, revealing a view that made the notebook that Midoriya was holding drop on the floor. Kaminari was straddling Kaken from behind while the other boy was lying on the ground. When did that happen? And how? What the hell happened? Siro whispered. Midoriya had no answers for him. But it seems like Kaminari has won the battle. Aizawa's voice sounded doubtful, like even he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The fight had been in Kaken's favor, and when the explosion had filled the screen, Midoriya had been almost sure that Kaken would win. Apparently not. Midoriya felt curious. He wanted to know how Kaminari had managed to best Kaken in a matter of seconds when Midoriya himself had never been able to. The green-haired boy took his quirk-analyzing notebook back to his hands from the floor, dusting off any dirt. Kaminari's ears were ringing, and his vision blurred as he quickly got up on his feet, taking a step away from Bakugo. Are you okay? He asked. Was his speech slurred? Maybe. The tense form in front of Denki got back on his feet, turning towards Kaminari with an expression Kaminari couldn't place. What the f*** was that? Kaminari shrugged, or at least he attempted to, but his shoulders felt like lead. He wasn't sure if the intended motion happened. Itk. Bakugo huffed, his vermilion eyes burning into Kaminari's mind. Denki was ready for anger or an explosion that would kill him, but there was none of that. Bakugo just turned away and walked out of the building. He didn't even seem that upset over his loss. His loss? Kaminari blinked and made a face. He had just won, hadn't he? He had won against Bakugo Katsuki, who had never lost to anyone. Did Kaminari accidentally end up in an alternative universe? That sounded more likely. Walking back into the monitoring room was a feat in itself. He tripped at least twice on the way, but what was waiting there was even more horrible. 18 pairs of curious eyes wanting to know. What happened? How did you beat Kakin? That was so cool and I didn't even see what it was. How did you do it? Are you okay? It was annoying. There was this explosion from Bakugo's Quirk dash. That covered the whole screen, and none of us could see. Guys, Kaminari waved his hand to get the attention of his classmates. I'm not sure what happened myself, it all was so fast. God, Denki's head and back hurt so bad. The wall he hit during the fight didn't do any good for him. He wanted to sit on the ground. Or lie on it. Now that all the adrenaline from the fight slowly dissipated, his legs felt like jelly. I'll have to go to the recovery girl actually. Took an impact on my back when I hit the wall. Which you all saw. So, bye. I'll explain what I can later. Kaminari had no intention of explaining shit. He was going to run away and avoid the topic like plague. Kaminari Denki, bro, what do I do? Bakugo will never forgive me. Kirishima Ijiro, what do you mean? BCU 1? Kaminari Denki, no OFC not. Kaminari Denki, I said something really mean to him. Kaminari Denki, I was angry. Kirishima Ijiro, what did you say? Kaminari Denki, I said I think Midoriya is better than him. Kirishima Ijiro, shit. Kaminari Denki, I don't even mean it. Kaminari Denki, like it all? Kaminari Denki, I know I have to say sorry, but he might actually kill me. Kaminari Denki, I feel so bad. I was mean for no reason. Kirishima Ijiro, be a man, apologize. Kaminari Denki, but I am just a dude. Kirishima Ijiro. Kirishima Ijiro, Marvel reference? Kaminari Denki, Marvel reference. Kirishima Ijiro, I meant to ask BTW. Kaminari Denki, yeah? Kirishima Ijiro, are you alright? Kirishima Ijiro, you didn't look that hot after the fight. A bit pale. And tired. Kaminari Denki, thanks for worrying. I'm all okay though. Kaminari Denki, I just missed on some sleep yesterday and was stressed about the fight and stuff. Kirishima Ijiro, okay. Kaminari didn't honestly know when his life had come to this point. He was standing in front of his closet, staring blankly at his clothes. Somehow also holding a cucumber, a chilly presence against his even colder hand. What to wear? He felt cold, but he was also sweating? But it was like cold sweat, so... He blinked slowly, put the cucumber on a stool to wait, and decided on a black form-fitting top. The top turned out not to be so form-fitting. Kaminari pulled it on and noticed that it hung loosely around his body. The blonde frowned. Had he lost weight? When and how? He was pretty sure this top was still a good size for him before Christmas. Should he be worried? Kaminari snorted at his stupidity. Of course he should. He just didn't find the energy to be. He also decided to wear a black hoodie on top of his shirt because he was, as formerly self-discovered, feeling cold. Taking a bite out of his cucumber, he stepped out and closed the door to his room. The cucumber was good tasting, not one of those too watery or dry ones. Denki was just about to take another bite when the green vegetable slipped from his fingers, falling on the floor with a thump. Kaminari stared at his hand in an utter feeling of betrayal. Don't give up on me now, he muttered under his breath, taking hold of the cucumber with both of his hands. He ended up in front of Bakugo's room door, holding the cucumber like a weapon. Denki could always bonk the cucumber into Bakugo's head as self-defense if he tried to attempt homicide. Denki took a few calming breaths. He could do this. Totally. He would do this like a man Kirishima would want him to be. Kaminari knocked on Bakugo's door, confident and cool as ever. The door slipped open, a sour face of Bakugo Katsuki staring back at Kaminari. Denki opened his mouth, about to give the most apologizing apology ever given, but then the door was slammed closed. Right in front of his face, too, Kaminari thought. Before the very cool and chill teen could knock on the door. again and start pestering Bakugo. The door, surprisingly, opened. Kaminari blinked. Bakugo stood in the doorway, his expression somewhere between anger and confusion, looking at Kaminari's hand. Denki followed his friend's gaze to the cucumber he was holding. What the f dash dot? Bakugo had opened the door to do a double take on the effing cucumber Denki was holding. Kaminari giggled, like a maniac he apparently was. Bakugo's expression was just too memorable. He wished he had a camera. The door was aggressively shut again. But Kaminari wasn't here to annoy Bakugo. Wait, sheet. Bakugo. I came here to apologize. I'm a terrible waste of existence, and I thought you might want to hear that. An awkward moment of Kaminari staring at the door followed, nothing else than silence surrounding him. Fine. Bakugo's face came back into his view. Stop yelling in the hallway, idiot. Bakugo held the door open as an invitation, a very reluctant invitation, but an invitation nonetheless. Kaminari was ready to cry from relief. Instead, he stepped into his bro's room. Now. Bakugo's voice was little scary, promising death for those who opposed him. What do you want? With a smooth, effortless movement, Bakugo pushed the door so hard that it was a miracle the door didn't fly off the hinges, making a loud bang sound as it closed. Denki gulped, visibly nervous. The two boys stood there, in Bakugo's room, facing each other. A few centuries passed. Okay, maybe like 30 seconds. I'm sorry I was in this hole. What? Bakugo replied, not even trying to keep the irritation out of his voice. Are you here to waste my time, dunceface? Denki almost squeaked because okay, scary much. Kaminari stared at the floor. I'm sorry, Kaminari said, gaining confidence in his stumbling speech. I was awful to you, and you didn't even do anything wrong. I was mostly frustrated and angry with myself, which I took out on you. It was unfair. I didn't mean what I said. And I'm sorry. Kaminari brought his eyes to look into Bakugo's, even when it felt really hard and awkward. You are a good friend. I don't think I've ever said it before. So, there. Kaminari had thought about it for the few hours he had spent alone in his room, trying to avoid people and responsibility. Bakugo had rather lost a fight than hurt Denki in his weakest. It was a huge gesture for someone like Bakugo, who was still learning to care about others. Shut up, dunceface. Bakugo walked past him and sat down on his bed. Kaminari let a careful smile take over his face, tension slipping away from his shoulders. The other blonde had just totally accepted his apology. And why the F, do you have a cucumber? Kaminari forced his face to grin, taking a good chomp out of the greenery in his hand. It's a snack. Obviously. Bakugo stared at him like he was an idiot. Denki couldn't tell Bakugo that the idea of dinner didn't appeal to him. The chicken curry that he saw his classmates eating made his stomach turn and nausea appear. Denki had instead skipped dinner and raided the fridge for foods that didn't make him feel like throwing up. Cucumber just happened to be one of those. There was suddenly a warm grip around his wrist, pulling him to Bakugo's bed. Kaminari landed ungracefully on his but next to Bakugo. Oi, your hand is like a block of ice. Denki rolled his eyes, settling himself next to Bakugo. I know. Bakugo's room decor was simple. A bed with black sheets, a closet with a few All Might posters on it, and a desk filled with organized school stuff. Now that Kaminari thought about it, he realized he had never been in Bakugo's room before. Nice room. Kaminari grinned at Bakugo. Bakugo didn't offer back anything other than cold red calculating eyes. Let's cuddle. Like hell. Kaminari was kicked out of the bed. Ow. The floor was uncomfortably cold. Kaminari pouted. Very rude, Kakin. Poor me freezing here on the floor. A blanket landed on top of him. The blonde-haired boy smirked by himself, safe from Bakugo's gaze. Thanks. Kaminari settled on the floor, wrapping himself on the blanket and hugging the cucumber close to his body. Kaminari inspected the dull white ceiling. So what the hell is wrong with you? Bakugo inquired. Denki knew he kind of owned Kakin an explanation. The explanation he didn't want to give. Denki stuffed his mouth full of cucumber, preventing him from answering. Bakugo's face appeared over his own, his body partly hovering from the bed. Bakugo's mouth thinned into a foreboding line. Denki swallowed and focused his eyes back on the ceiling. Bakugo waited patiently. I don't even know how to explain all of this utter shit my life has turned into. Kaminari pinched his eyes close, letting words shoved far back into his throat come out. I think I'm sick. Or dying. Kaminari snapped his eyes quickly open. But you can't tell anyone, he stated with a determined voice. You have to promise. That earned him a dirty look, but surprisingly Bakugo didn't protest. Fine. Kaminari exhaled a breath of relief. Thanks. You gonna expand on that sick thing? Bakugo sounded neither irritated, worried, or curious. He kept his tone and voice calm, letting Kaminari choose what to do. Sheet. I don't even know what it is. Shut up now, Denki. Don't push your worries onto others. Everything simple is just so unreasonably difficult. I can't even write notes without my hands shanking, stand long without feeling bad, sleep well, and live my life like a normal person. The words came rushing out, even when Kaminari felt like he shouldn't say any of them. My parents don't believe me, even when I told them something is clearly wrong, and Kaminari took a deep breath, voice wavering. He felt his eyes burn with forming tears. I keep throwing up this scary golden stuff. I don't want to get thrown out of the hero course because of this. I don't know what the hell is up with my quirk. Or even if what happened during our fight was because of my quirk. I want to know what my parents are hiding. I don't want to die. Kaminari could feel the first tears fall. It hurts so much. When Denki finally started full-on sobbing, he couldn't bring himself to stop. The stress, anger, confusion, and frustration of that day turned into sadness, leaving his body in the form of salty-tasting tears. Kaminari hid his face behind his free hand, wanting to hide away. God, this was embarrassing. He didn't want to cry in front of anyone. Kaminari heard shuffling and registered the warm body that took a place next to him. Both teen boys laid on the floor, the other one crying his heart out, the other offering silent support. Oh hey Midoriya. What's up? Hello, Kirishima. I hope I'm not bothering you, it's a bit late after all, but there were some things that kind of left me bothered. I thought maybe you would like some company. Also seeing as our conversation ways interrupt tethering the training . Whoa, slow down, Kirishima rushed to say, waving his hand. It's fine. It's not like I was doing anything anyway. Do you want to come inside? Midoriya nodded, a bit flustered. He wasn't exactly sure why he had the urge to talk to Kirishima. The two boys had had a good fight today. Kirishima was an excellent opponent to train with. Midoriya had ended up winning, but not without real effort. Kirishima showed Midoriya into his room, and the two boys sat down on the opposite sides of Kirishima's camouflage sheets-covered bed. Midoriya adjusted his position to be more comfortable. You fought well today, Midoriya praised, letting himself smile softly. Thanks man, you too. You always do. Kirishima beamed at the green-haired boy. Thank you. A moment of comfortable silence passed between them. Can I ask something? About Bakugo? Kirishima asked, nibbling his sheets between calloused fingers. Midoriya felt a bit taken aback. He didn't expect Kirishima to want to ask him anything. Sure. Kirishima looked carefully at Midoriya. Since the beginning, everyone could kinda tell that you two are rivals. You have tried to beat Bakugo for a long time now, and I thought that. Midoriya caught onto what Kirishima was trying to say. That seeing Kaken lose to someone else would be frustrating? Yeah, somewhere along those lines. Midoriya hadn't thought about it like that. Sure, seeing Kaken lose to someone for the first time ever was shocking, but Midoriya didn't think it was that straightforward either. I think there is more going on. Kaken wasn't fighting with the best of his capabilities for some reason. That has likely something to do with Kaminari. I don't know whether Kaken lost with purpose or Kaminari genuinely bested him, but I can't find myself being jealous or frustrated. I'm more worried about what's going on. And curious, of course. If Kaminari actually managed to win, I would like to know how he did. Wouldn't we all? Kirishima sighed, and then he quickly added, but you didn't come here for this. What did you want to talk about? Well, it's actually about Kaminari and what you said, that he looks sick. Midoriya let his gaze fall away from Kirishima, trying to find the right words. I think you are right. He seems a bit off. How long has, whatever this is, been going on? Do you know? When I think about it, I can't help but worry. If it's affecting even Kaken's usual performance to this degree, it must be something serious. Kirishima fidgeted, his expression morphing into a sad frown. Ever since Christmas, I've noticed that he has looked up bad. I don't know what it is. Kaminari doesn't want to talk about whatever is going on, and I don't want to force him. Maybe he needs time. I trust that he can look after himself. But in Hokkaido? Well, you surely remember what happened in Hokkaido. It might have something to do with that. I mean, Kirishima continued to explain, he acts like nothing is wrong. But I have a feeling something is wrong. I don't know whether Bakugo knows what's up with Kaminari, but it's safe to say that he at least suspects something too. Midoriya nodded, pondering this over. Kaken was very perceptive, so he would be the first person to notice if something was wrong with a close friend. I say we do nothing until either Kaminari or Kaken reveal something. I trust that those two can handle it for now. This is Kaminari's private business, after all. The red-haired teen nodded, but Midoriya could tell he was unsatisfied with this outcome. It wasn't easy, seeing a friend struggling, unable to do anything. The amount of weight that left Kaminari's shoulders was honestly baffling, being forgiven by Bakugo and also having someone know, at least to some degree. Kaminari's steps were light as he walked back to his room, hoping that no one would run into him on the way. His buffed red eyes and tear-streaked face would raise questions. But God, wasn't it embarrassing, suddenly bursting into tears like that? In front of Bakugo no less, Kaminari thought as he entered his room. Denki saw Bakugo as this person with a big explosive personality, someone who didn't let his guard down easily. Someone who would try to hide their true feelings, no matter how hard it got. Someone bad at feelings in general. Someone who wasn't the type of person to open up to about your problems either. He's still trying his best anyway. Kaminari let out a yawn and stretched his hands above his head. Well, it was time to get to bed. All thought came to a halt when Kaminari's eyes landed on the innocent bottle on the table. It was his medicine. Kaminari had put it in a place where it could be seen so that he would remember to take it every day. Wait a DMN minute. Now that Kaminari didn't have to worry about apologizing to Bakugo anymore, he finally remembered the feeling he had that morning. Like he had forgotten something. He had forgotten to take his FANG medicine. He had taken it for the past 9 years every day without fail. So okay, maybe he wasn't feeling the best that morning, but still. Denki's first thought was to panic. Wouldn't that be a nice cherry on top, with everything, also having your quirk start acting up? But wait. Nothing bad had happened. The blonde had survived today's training and hadn't hurt himself. Maybe missing one day wasn't the end of the world. Kaminari would just have to take his medicine again tomorrow morning like he always had. It was a never-changing routine. Every morning when you wake up, take 2 pills. Words that his mother had repeated again and again. Denki rubbed his eyes, letting himself relax. Next to the medicine bottle, there was the list Kaminari had started writing on Christmas, now with 4 new things added to it. All the weird stuff about me. No childhood memories. I knew this before, but I did not know it was abnormal. I feel weak, trembling, stumbling, losing mobility, etc. The golden liquid, like, what's up with that? My parents are acting weird. Secrets? Headaches. Nausea/lack of appetite. Sleeping is hard. Whatever happened during the training time slowed down, and the world turned into a movie? Denki could stare at the words written on the paper with a blue-inked pen forever, and it still wouldn't reveal the answers to his questions. Find the missing pieces. Bakugo Katsuki, I still can't believe your sheet reasons for not telling anyone. Bakugo Katsuki, go see a doctor. Dunce face. Kaminari Denki, D. Bakugo Katsuki, and why the FNUT? Kaminari Denki. Honestly, it first started as dismissal. Kaminari Denki, BC, if my mom was all like, you shouldn't worry, so I thought I was being overly dramatic. Kaminari Denki, but then I didn't want to worry you guys. Kaminari Denki, and now I want everything to be normal. Kaminari Denki, and it is so frustrating. BC, everything is finally okay. Kaminari Denki, No villain attacks for months, no kidnappings, nothing. Kaminari Denki. I feel like I would be bursting this bubble of happiness. Bakugo Katsuki. As I said, sheet reasons. Bakugo Katsuki. What's honestly the worst thing that could happen if you told someone? Kaminari Denki. Bakugo Katsuki. 'Cause I feel like I'm missing some sheet here. Bakugo Katsuki. I know you aren't telling the whole truth, idiot. Kaminari Denki. Kaminari Denki. Shocked. Kaminari Denki. Uneasy face. Bakugo Katsuki. Stop with the F faces. Kaminari Denki. Bakugo Katsuki. I will block you. Kaminari Denki. Logically, I know I have to tell PPL. Kaminari Denki. And I will. Kaminari Denki. In 2 weeks. Kaminari Denki. Let me keep it a secret for 2 weeks. Kaminari Denki. Just 2 little weeks, nothing will even change in that time. Bakugo Katsuki. Fine. Bakugo Katsuki, but if something happens, I'm telling the teachers. Kaminari Denki. Kaminari Denki. Deal. Kaminari knocked on Todoroki's door with some difficulty, simultaneously trying to balance the bag and laptop in his hands. The door opened immediately, almost smacking Kaminari in the face. Todoroki stood in the doorway, blankly looking at Denki. Afternoon, Todoroki. I thought we could hang together if you aren't busy right now. I have more material for your meme. Studies. And also snacks. Kaminari beamed, presenting Todoroki the plastic bag with Kit Kats, chips, and flavored soy milk cartons in it. I'm not occupied at the moment. Todoroki held the door open to Kaminari as the blonde stepped into the room. Todoroki's Japanese-style room never ceased to amaze Denki, floor covered in tatame and traditional furniture decorating the space. Kaminari walked over to Todoroki's desk, settling down his belongings on the wooden surface. What milk flavor do you prefer? I have banana and strawberry, Kaminari asked, holding out the options for his friend to see. Strawberry, thanks. Kaminari threw a strawberry milk carton to Todoroki, who caught it effortlessly from the air. Got to have that pretty boy elegance to everything, Denki thought and smiled. Before we start, I would like to ask you something, Todoroki stated, a serious look on his face. Kaminari blinked. Sure, go ahead. Are you okay? Kaminari groaned, rubbing his eyes. He had come to spend time with Todoroki, partly because he wanted to avoid everyone else, partly because Todoroki was a surprisingly nice company, but mostly because he wanted to avoid hearing people ask that. Why does everyone keep asking me that? Todoroki's heterochromia eyes considered Kaminari. Probably because you look like my mother when she poured boiling water on my face. Kaminari spluttered, gaping at Todoroki. Because what? I'm sorry? It came out more of a question than as condolence it was supposed to be. Don't be. It was a joke. I have already talked about my childhood with Midoriya. I have also forgiven her a long time ago for this, Todoroki explained calmly, pointing at the burn scar which reached from his hairline to halfway down his cheek. Kaminari had wondered how he got it, but he did not expect this. Wow. My point still stands. You do look ailing, Todoroki continued carefully. I'm fine. It's only sleep deprivation, but did you joke about your trauma just now? Kaminari asked, feeling a little choked. Poor Midoriya. Todoroki opened his mouth, about to say something, but Kaminari waved his hand to stop him. You know what? Let's just push this in the back of our minds and move to my amazing PPP. PP. Todoroki frowned mildly. Kaminari smirked, biting his lip. PPP as in PowerPoint presentation. Oh. Denki opened his laptop, pulling out the files he made for this occasion. He cleared his throat. So today's topic is Vine, and how it affected the present meme culture. Half an hour later, Kaminari finished his PowerPoint presentation with a video collage of vines from YouTube. He had no idea if Todoroki had learned to understand meme culture or not. They had talked about the subject a lot during the past weeks. Why do you want to learn about this stuff anyway? It's not that important of a thing to know about, Kaminari asked, honestly curious to hear why. Todoroki stayed silent for a while, finding a way to answer the question. Kaminari took a sip of strawberry milk while he waited for Todoroki to speak. I'm trying to make up for the time I could have been a normal teenager, but I couldn't be, because my father is a selfish JRK. Kaminari spat out the strawberry milk, which caused a wet stain to appear on his white shirt, some of the milk ending up on Todoroki's black and white carpet. So I'm trying to learn about basic teenager topics, Todoroki continued to explain while Kaminari coughed the milk from his lungs. I didn't really have friends my age or access to the internet, so I've missed a lot of stuff growing up. Hold up a moment. You weren't allowed to have a phone? Kaminari asked, scandalized. Todoroki shook his head lightly. I wasn't. I got mine when I graduated middle school. Kaminari had known that Todoroki's home life wasn't the best, or at least he had suspected. He hadn't expected Todoroki open up to him, but it made Denki feel a bit special anyway, being trusted with personal information. Dude, that is all of it. Kaminari offered the boy sitting in front of him an empathetic smile, trying to convey his feelings. He could guess it was strenuous, feeling like an outsider among people your age. No wonder Todoroki wanted to learn. Something occurred to Kaminari. Wait, what about books and movies? Were you allowed to read and watch those? That if they were something my father deemed useful or informational? Denki wanted to grimace, but instead he grinned. That means I have to make a list for you about the entertainment you've missed. I promise it's going to be enjoyable. Maybe we even could organize a movie night with our class. That could be fun. And I read a lot, so there's a lot of book recommendations I can give. Kaminari realized he was getting carried away, and his speech slowed down, or something. Todoroki's mouth formed into a small soft smile, his gaze inspecting the floor. That I would like that. For the next few days, Kaminari managed to live in relative peace. No one brought up his fight with Bakugo, probably because of Kaminari's obvious avoidance of the subject. Everyone acted normal around him. Well, almost normal. People just seemed to be extra nice to him. Bakugo walked next to Denki all the time, steadying Kaminari by putting a hand on his shoulder if the other blonde stumbled or tripped on his feet. Bakugo didn't try to discuss the things Denki had told him. He just was there, a silent, unyielding presence by Kaminari's side. It was impossible to get a moment without his friend group. Mina had started to text Kaminari more often. Shiro offered to make Kaminari his breakfast. You never eat it anymore. And I make too much for myself anyway. How do you feel about omelets? And Kirishima volunteered to carry Kaminari's backpack every day. Kaminari never took this offer, guilt heavy in his heart. Yaoyorozu had asked him every evening if he would want any tea. Todoroki had given Kaminari blankets, saying that he had too many in his room. Jiro shared a lot of music recommendations with Kaminari, more than usual. It made Denki's heart warm, reminding him of how wonderful his friends were. He didn't deserve them. But it also meant that people were noticing. Kaminari suspected that all these tiny acts of kindness were because of his appearance, a telltale of his unknown condition. In the early tired mornings, Kaminari would get a reminder of his looks as he got ready in front of his mirror. His formerly fit body had started to appear frielier, slight shoulders dragged in his shirts, and bruises from training remained longer on his waxy skin. Denki's pale complexion defined his dark circles and golden eyes that had a pinpoint look to them, lack of good sleep quality showing. Whereas he used to have soft cheeks and a kind appearance, now he was all sharp angles and tiredness. The days at the beginning of January were weird, the sky was clear, and the sun was a warm blessing on students' faces, but the weather was still chilly. Kaminari had to wear many layers with his school uniform and bury his face deep into the scarf around his neck to keep his nose from freezing off walking from the dorms to the school building, holding his hands curled deep into his pockets. But no matter how many clothes he wore, there was a lingering, unnatural coldness in his body that reached deep down to his bones. Kaminari ignored it. He ignored all of it. No, Mina, I already told you. I don't want you to paint my nails. Oh, hi, Jiro. I thought you were Mina. Jiro huffed, rolling her eyes at Kaminari. She was standing in the doorway of Kaminari's room, holding papers in her hand. I could tell. Jiro was wearing a gray band t-shirt and a soft-looking black cardigan, creating a homely feeling to her appearance. Her cheeks were a little flushed, maybe because of winter's coldness. So dash. Before Denki could ask Jiro what she wanted, Denki's vision was filled with music sheets that Jiro pushed right in front of his nose. What's this? Music sheets. Obviously. It was Kaminari's turn to roll his eyes. No, I know that. Why are you shoving them in my face? Jiro retreated her hand, now waving the sheets up and down, expression bored. Because, idiot, you are going to play them. With me. The last part of her sentence was added in like an afterthought. Expect why? It's not like we have a new festival to train for. Jiro didn't bother answering. Instead, she turned in her heels and started walking away. Kaminari pouted but followed her lead anyway. Hey wait, where are we going? To the common room. I already asked the others, and they said they wouldn't mind some guitar playing, Jiro explained with a firm tone, giving no room for argument. But why? Kaminari became more confused. I wasn't going to pick up the guitar, even though it's a cool instrument and all. Because this song works best as a duet, so I need a partner. You'll do. Wow, thanks. Kaminari deadpanned and accepted his faith. Guitar playing could be surprisingly fun, and Kaminari didn't have anything better to do either. The common room was otherwise empty, except for Hagakure, Mina, and Uraraka. The three girls were sitting on the floor in front of the green couches, doing each other's nails. Ah, evening Jiro, Kaminari. Don't mind us, Hagakure welcomed them. Evening, Hagakure, Kaminari responded, smiling. Uraraka, Mina. Hello, Kaminari and Jiro. We were waiting for our background music crew to arrive, Mina said, grinning widely. Jiro sat down on the couch. Kaminari hesitated a couple of seconds and then imitated her, finding a good position on the soft couch. The golden-eyed teen surveyed the stuff Jiro had brought there, 2 acoustic guitars and a music stand, where she put the sheets. Why do you own 2 guitars? Isn't one enough? The other one is my old one, and it SCKS more than the new one. You'll get to play that, Jiro explained with a light tone, pointing at the guitar that was a slightly darker wooden color than the one next to it. K. Kaminari took the guitar in his hands delicately, sliding his fingers along the strings. Denki knew close to nothing about music and instruments, but he could still appreciate the feeling of a guitar in his hands. So, we'll be playing this song by Metallica called Nothing Else Matters. Denki frowned, thinking. The name sounded familiar. Wait, yeah, I remember. Isn't that song like 8 minutes long? And way too hard for me to play. 6.5, actually, Jiro answered, starting to tune her instrument with experienced hands. And even someone like you will manage. It's not that hard of a song to play. We don't have to play the whole thing today. Just get started on it. What do you mean with someone like you? Kaminari whined, shanking his head. Even a brain-jamming idiot like you, Jiro elaborated, smirking. Mean. Jiro had an appealing voice. It carried far as she sang, enclosing the space with her music. Forever trusting who we are. And nothing else matters. Her dark eyes moved away from the notes, turning towards Kaminari's hands. Never cared for what they know. Stop. Jiro abruptly stopped her singing and playing, scowling at Kaminari. What is it now? Kaminari groaned. They had been at this for a long time. Jiro was a demanding music teacher, stopping the music as soon as Kaminari played something wrong. Jiro frowned, inspecting Kaminari's hands. I can hear there's something wrong with that part, but can't figure out what. The common room had slowly filled with more people. Kirishima and Shiro were playing cards on the opposite couch. Sato was baking something sweet-smelling in the kitchen. All the girls were hanging around, talking and gossiping. I'm just gonna use my quirk for this, easier to pinpoint what you're doing wrong, Jiro muttered under her breath, activating her quirk. Play the same part again. Jiro sometimes used her quirk to achieve a perfect pitch with her super hearing. Probably the best pitch in the world, Kaminari had concluded. Denki eyed the music notes, just about to play, but then Jiro interrupted him again. Could you please tone down that buzzing a bit? It's distracting me from hearing properly, Jiro asked, expression pinched with annoyance. Kaminari was now honestly lost. What buzzing? Jiro raised her eyebrows. Your quirk is buzzing awfully loud. I can hear the hum of electricity a mile away. I can always hear it around you, but I swear that it's getting louder every time. Can you tone it down a bit? Yayazoru appeared next to the pair before Kaminari could answer. Would you two like some calming chamomile tea? Jiro abandoned Kaminari without a thought, pouncing at the chance to have a tea break with Yayazoru. I would love to, thanks. Kaminari said, bewildered, stumbling to find words. I would like a cup as well, thanks. Great. Yayazoru beamed, clapping her hands together. 5 minutes later, all of the students in the common room were holding teacups, sipping silently. By the way, guys, I don't know about you all, but I'm honestly a bit fed up with being in the dorms all the time. So I thought that maybe our class could go to a mall to do some shopping? The sales are on right now, and I need new shoes, Mina suggested, making gestures with her free hand. What a good idea, Mina, Yayazoru marveled. That would honestly be nice. Give the class something to do. I'll take this suggestion to Ida and Aizawa immediately. Kaminari Denki, hi mom. Kaminari Denki, my class and I are going to the city mall tomorrow. Kaminari Denki, could dad transfer my monthly allowance to my bank account a bit early for that? Kaminari Shizuka, hello, Denki. Sounds nice. What time tomorrow are you going? Kaminari Denki, after classes, around 4 p.m. Kaminari Shizuka, dad comes home late today, so I'll ask him to transfer the money tomorrow before that. Kaminari Denki, okay. First of all, I'm sorry to everyone who clicked on this chapter thinking it was a new update, it's not. After months of self-denial, I have finally gotten the guts to admit to myself, there's no way I'm ever finishing this FIC. I was 16 when I started writing it, completely inexperienced. I'm turning 18 next month, and during this time I've moved on from My Hero Academia completely. Kaminari Denki as a character just isn't interesting to me anymore. I apologize to everyone who has waited for new updates. However, I won't leave this FIC as a total mystery. Down below you can find a complete plot summary of this FIC and how it was supposed to go. There are also some snippets I had already written. Despite not finishing this FIC, it will have a special place in my heart. It taught me a lot about writing stories, proper planning of the plot, and doing justice to the characters. Especially now, when I read my newest work Dream SMPAU. If someone here happens to be in the fandom, I can see the huge steps of improvement in writing this FIC helped me to get. I appreciate all comments and kudos this FIC has gotten. You are all amazing. Take care. Adjurasia. At the speed of light, and what was left unsaid. This is only the abridged version, so many details and scenes are unfortunately left out. Kaminari's future mother, Shizuka, was obsessed with perfection. She envied the girl that went to the same elementary school as her. The girl's life seemed to be perfect. She had rich, loving parents, and she would often tell stories about their family travels in the classroom. Shizuka's father had an electricity quirk that he used to abuse her. Shizuka herself was quirkless. Shizuka was unnaturally jealous of this girl in her class, and she made a promise to herself that she would get herself a perfect family, no matter the cost. One day, he met Rokuro Kaminari, a man with a past similar to hers. Both Rokuro's parents had electricity quirks, but despite that, Rokuro had a quirk that could wipe memories. Shizuka and Rokuro eventually fell in love and decided to start a family together. On the day of Denki's birth, something went awfully wrong. Usually, children got their quirks as toddlers, but Denki Kaminari was born with one, a terrifyingly powerful electricity quirk. At the moment that the child was born, the quirk activated. It almost killed his mother. Rokuro wiped the memories of the hospital workers because Shizuka wanted everyone to think that their child was normal and not this freak of nature. Again, due to her trauma, she was obsessed with perfection and couldn't handle the knowledge that according to her standards, the child was imperfect. Shizuka and Rokuro tried at first to raise Kaminari like normal, but as a small child, he had no control over his quirk. Shizuka grew to be scared of her own child so much so that she started to think of him as a monster. Rokuro hadn't really wanted a child in the first place, only agreeing to get one because Shizuka had wanted a perfect family with a perfect, straight-A student child. They both wanted to get rid of this monster, so they came up with a plan. kill Denki Kaminari in a way it looked like he had died from a terrible illness, and gain the sympathy of their friends and distant relatives in the process. They met a doctor called Matsumoto Kazuhiko who was terribly interested in Kaminari's quirk. He had a quirk that could create illegal substances. Kazuhiko advised that the best way to kill the child was by very strong quirk suppressants. Kaminari's quirk made his body generate so much energy that once locked inside of his body, it would slowly start to kill him inside out. The golden liquid was electricity in a liquid form. Kaminari's quirk was so strong that it literally defied the basic laws of physics. The overflowing and used energy in his body started to turn into a liquid to get out of his body since it didn't get released naturally. The suppressants were given to a 7-year-old Kaminari as a fake medicine. His memory before that moment was wiped by his father. For the plan to work, Kaminari couldn't remember his past or his true quirk. Kaminari's parents tried to act as the perfect parents for their normal child. So when Kaminari wanted to go to Yude, they didn't oppose him. But they soon realized their mistake. In Yude, Kaminari used his quirk more than ever before, which accelerated the death of his body. They had a conversation about this that Kaminari partly overheard in Chapter 6. They made a new plan that was supposed to take place in Chapter. They made the doctor, who had connections to the League of Villains, tell them about Kaminari's quirk. The League took immediate interest because if All for One could acquire Kaminari's quirk, he wouldn't need One for All anymore. When Class 1A went to the mall, the League would attack, but their attempt would fail. The kidnapping attempt made Kaminari realize that his parents were the most likely cause of it, as they were the only people besides Class 1A and some teachers who knew about it beforehand. This would lead Kaminari to be even more suspicious of some things, and eventually even about his medicine. Since also Todoroki had an element-based quirk, Kaminari would ask if Todoroki also took it. However, Todoroki had no idea what Kaminari was talking about. This would lead to a scene where Kaminari confessed everything that had been going on not only to the Bakugo squad but also to the Deku squad, Jiro, and Yaoyorozu, because they would be able to help him. They formed a group of people to go and investigate Kaminari's house, and there they found the receipts for the medicine and the name of the doctor. They would hunt down the doctor, and with some good Bakugo-enforced persuasion, they would make the crazy man admit that the medicine was indeed a quirk suppressant. This would make Kaminari give up the medicine completely. With enough evidence, they got Kaminari's parents arrested. Later on, Kaminari would have found out the whole truth. In Chapter 17, a bunch of scientists would come to the UA to make some tests on Kaminari's quirk. In Chapter 18, Class 1A would be just lounging around the common room when they would see from the news that the League of Villains had taken hostages, their only demand being, if Kaminari Denki hasn't come here alone in the next 6 hours, we will start killing. Other students and teachers would order Kaminari to not do anything as of yet. In Chapter 19, Denki would try to sneak out of the dorms, only to be stopped by Midoriya. Denki would manage to convince Midoriya to let him go because if Midoriya was in his shoes, he would have done the same thing. In Chapter 20, Kaminari would willingly go with the villains, but before they could take him away, some 1A students would appear at the scene. Then would follow the final battle, and Kaminari would use his quirk willingly in a fight for the first time. Toga and Dabi would be caught, but the rest would get away. In the last chapter, Kaminari would wake up in a hospital and he and Aizawa would have a deep conversation about everything that happened, delving more into why Kaminari had kept his symptoms hidden for so long and what he would want to do now. Aizawa would tell Kaminari that the League of Villains would not stop gunning for him. The last words would have been, Denki Kaminari used to have a typical life. But like everything, even lives would change. Change was inevitable. Sometimes it happened gradually, but sometimes it was fast. For Kaminari, it had felt like his whole world had changed at the speed of light. His parents did manage to kill a part of him, but maybe he was better off without that part. After all, heroes didn't get happy endings. He had to be ready to face the future. He had no time to be the sunny, naive child anymore. Heroes didn't get happy endings, but Kaminari's story was just beginning. The titles left unused. The blue-dyed boy reaching for me. Suspicions under the opening sky. Lightning on my lips. The poison that has consumed me. My life that was hidden from me. To the unwanted gold child she did not want. heaving through corrupted lungs. Responsibility of the strong. The war outside keeps marching on. To the green hero, I am sorry. The unstoppable force twisting in me. Finding my way back home. Pre-written snippets. There's something locked into Kaminari's throat, the feeling of it cold. Unfortunately, it wasn't an unfamiliar feeling. Months had gone past, and the liquid in his body had become something he was now used to. However, this time, the feeling was more uncomfortable, heavier than ever before. It was painful. The sudden pain and a lurch in Kaminari's gut brought him to his knees. Gold had been Kaminari's favorite color. His eyes were golden, and he had always liked them. Gold was the color of winners, a symbol of elegance and triumph. Those whose personality could be associated with the color gold were said to be loyal, caring, and dependable. It wasn't anymore. Hey, I have a question for everyone, Kaminari stated, bringing attention to himself. Did anyone tell about us going to the mall? Outside of our class and teachers, I mean. Everyone says no. Ida raises his eyebrows and asks why Kaminari is asking this. That did it. Kaminari couldn't trust his parents anymore. Not when it was so likely that they were behind it all. Of course, the blonde didn't want to suspect his own family, but no one should have known that Class 1A had been about to go to the mall. No one except for Kaminari's parents. Denki's head started to spin, thoughts rushing through rapidly. Denki thought about how his parents had acted a bit weird all of his life. Especially during the last few months. This medicine is for your quirk. Denki thought about the medicine that was so very important for his mother. I think I have always had the same limit. Denki thought about the one day he had forgotten to take it, and nothing bad had happened. But something else had happened. This must be a doing of a quirk. Denki thought about the doctor in Hokkaido, and what he had said. Your quirk is buzzing awfully loud. Denki thought about everything and felt dread slowly creeping into his insides. Everything unnatural could always be explained with quirks. What other thing had there ever been, except Kaminari's own quirk? His own power? Runs to his room to fetch his medicine and reads the description. Comes back and asks Todoroki about it. Todoroki has no idea what Kaminari is talking about. Then, what the hell have I been eating for the past 9 years of my life?